Pittsburgh Piledriver.
What the hell is that?
Podcast.
Hi, everyone. It is Thursday, and this is the moment that we record this show. Whenever you listen to it, we don't know. Because unlike technology companies and the government, we can't tell when you're listening to our show because we don't spy on you that you know of. And I'm not going to tell you when I do. You're just going to see me outside your house with a ladder. Don't worry about it. Hi, it's the Pittsburgh Piledriver Podcast. We've got so much stuff to talk about tonight. Ooh, Lord, heaven help us. I am so wound up and excited to do a podcast show with all of us here this evening. I stopped down at my local convenience store and I picked up an energy drink from our favorite wrestler, Dane the Croc Cronston. And I'm going to crack that bad boy open and I'm going to get all energized with Samoan energy blood. Ooh, baby boy. Ooh, daddy, daddy. Ooh. We've got the long-awaited Mr. McMahon documentary to unpack. We have a celebration to hold because, once again, the Pittsburgh Piledriver Podcast has been ushered out of the darkness, ushered out of the pits of depression. We have freed ourselves from the captivity of Mordor and have arrived in the glory of the basking sun. That's right. The shining star above that fills your body with warmth and happiness is back. What do you mean by that? Well, let me tell you what I mean by that. I mean the Chooserweight Championship is back home where it belongs. It is back in the P3. It is back in the hands of one of us, and it is in the hands of the one who shines down on all of us with warm, loving, energizing light. Beef, the legend, has once again snatched the Chooserweight Championship out of the hands, out of the clutches, out of the claws of Krampus themselves. Sorry, Shannon household. Your time to be in the cold darkness has arrived. Our time to be in the warm light. Warm light. I'll get it right. Has arrived. Beef the Legend is once again on top. He is the Chooserweight champion, and it is up to you, dingleberries. That's right, I'm calling y'all out. It's up to you to try to take that belt out of the hands of, you know what, I'm going to say it, out of the hands of the most illustrious Chooserweight champion that has ever graced that belt. So, if you think you're man enough, if you think you're devil enough to snuff out the light and bring about another era of darkness, by all means, step up to the plate. I'm not worried because I know the glory of our legend will continue on into the future. Boys, it's baby.
Right,
Baby.
well, before
I'm dancing around on my porch like Dusty Rhodes, girl.
I'm excited to hear the conversation. I really am. I'm not going to get tribute because I have not watched it. I probably have no intent to do so. But throw up the ones. The tribal chief is here, and I am about to go on a Roman Reigns-esque tear. Acknowledge me. Just so that everybody is in the clear, I will give you the scores. But Pat didn't submit his points. Oh, neither did Amber. Well, guess what? Ironic that both of them forgot on the same day. It wouldn't have mattered. It would not have mattered. You know why? Because your tribal beef, throw up the ones, boys, has picked the perfect all out. I did not miss a point.
Damn.
So regardless of who chose what, homeboy was winning it anyway. I finished on top, yes.
You picked the winner of the battle royal, right? Too you picked.
There was no battle royal on All Out.
Yeah, the
There was no battle royal on All Out.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Okay. My bad. I was thinking of All In.
Yeah, sir.
Okay.
But
Sorry.
yes, those no good. All good. Well, no good. All good.
No good.
Yeah, I get them. I got all 8 matches on that card. I finished with 173. Poot a respectable 152. Dave.
Nope.
On the trail at 154. Nope. What?
You had Poot at 162 in the chat.
Yeah.
You said 152.
Yeah. My B.
Okay.
Poot at 162.
Thank
Dave
you.
154.
Ooh, that is respectable.
Yeah.
Ransom at 149. Managed to put on the afterburners there, beating Tom
Blind
at 148.
Blind panic.
And again, Amber and Pat did not submit picks for All Out, so therefore they finished at 130 and 127 respectively. And then Scoob got 97, which sounds low, but he did a pretty good job on All Out. So
Damn near crested 100.
I think if we get some consistency out of Scoob, he's going to be a contender in the year 2026 because 2025 is all mine, baby. All right. Let's talk about this Vince documentary, and by let's I mean you, because and I'll probably chime in. I'm not going to completely be a complicit silent partner because I'll still have opinions even though I didn't watch.
Oh,
I may just ask you to explain a few things like you guys often do to me. So please entertain me.
Entertain me.
Let me give you some bullet points here. Here are my major takeaways.
Like the Greek god Dionysus, I am sitting on my perch on the top of the world, eating my grapes, going, "Yes, entertain me."
It's pronounced Dionysus, but that's
I know.
fine.
I fucking damn it, Poot.
He's the tribal beef. He can pronounce it however he wants. One's up. Here are my major takeaways. Just real high level. There's a lot of detail, but high level. 1, I don't have any proof, just my own speculation. I don't believe everything that came out of Vince's mouth. He really, it seemed, tried to come off as just a guy trying to do business. I'm just Vince. Like, I'm just Vince. Nobody understands me. Nobody really knows me. I'm just Vince. I'm nothing like Mr. McMahon. Like, I'm just Vince. I don't believe it. I have, like I said, I have no concrete evidence to back it up. It's just theory and conjecture, but I don't believe it. Bullet point 2. If you stripped away everybody else's interviews and just watched the interviews done with Bret Hart, you would swear this documentary was about Bret Hart. Because
oh my God.
all Bret Hart did was put himself over the entire time. Anytime anybody asked him a question, I don't know what they asked him because we don't get the interviewers' questions. We just get what the interviewees are saying.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all about Bret.
God almighty.
You would swear this documentary was called The Hitman Hart because all he had to say was just all about him. All about him, all about Bret. He's the best fucking guy. Bret Hart had less humility in this documentary than Hulk Hogan. That speaks volumes.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And 3, final bullet point that I can take away from this, and this is how it's not lengthy, but this is how much it stood out to me, is that Vince McMahon does not deserve a son like Shane.
No.
I would say that Shane McMahon is the polar opposite of Vince McMahon. Shane, when he did an interview about like his match at King of the Ring and like, wanting his father to be proud of him and like the emotion in his voice and on his face when he said that when he went to the back after that match that he got a hug from Vince, you could tell by the emotion in his voice and the look on his face. Like all he ever craved was acceptance and love from his father. And you can tell that he never got it.
Yep.
Like Shane McMahon, by everyone's account. And again, this was a Vince documentary. People touched a little bit on Shane. Nobody had one bad word to say about Shane McMahon. And I don't think that Vince deserves a son the caliber and quality of Shane McMahon. Like, if anyone was ever going to damn anyone in the McMahon family, Shane would be the bottom of the fucking barrel, because I don't know that you really could. Like, I felt for that dude. Like, I choked up listening to him talk. It was rough. As a father, as someone who has a son, boy, I got choked up, because all he wanted was love and acceptance from his dad, and you can tell that was not one of the major things that he got.
Unfortunately, that's just the kind of a shitbag, and again, like, we have gone on with great deliberation, not even deliberation, profiliration, about what McMahon is, Vince is, was, and always will be. But that's what shitbags like that do, man. They don't give you the love and admiration that you want, and it makes you want it more, and it makes you try for it more. So they just continue to fucking move that bar and pull that rug out from under you in some like weird fucking like alpha male toxic masculinity idea of like, well, it'll just make him stronger. No, it's gonna fuck him up.
Yep.
And I'm not just speaking like on fathers, like on like, we've all had people in our lives that we've looked up to, or like, oh man, they're really cool, I want to try and be their friend, and they keep moving the fucking goalpost on you. They're like, oh, go do this, go do that, do. Pretty soon you're like, fuck, I'm just a fucking gopher for this dude. He has no love for me and no respect for me. And eventually you just gotta fucking, kind of sever and cut ties. Shitbirds are gonna shitbird. And that unfortunately just confirms another shortcoming of the monster that is Vince McMahon.
Well, I will say this now. I want to preface this by saying I'm not making excuses, but again, I said before this documentary ever came out, I was interested in it from a psychological standpoint too.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch the like, essentially, if you really want to get behind like the monster that was created or whatever, or the monster that is Vince McMahon, like, you can watch like episode 1 and 2, skip 3 and 4, and watch like the last two, because I feel like 3 and 4 kind of just covered like stuff that happened. Like, I think episode 3 was about like the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars, and like episode 4 was or 3 was about the screw job, 4 was whatever the case was, like, it just
Stuff happening in the company.
Yeah,
basically.
Stuff happening in the company and the wrestling world, and like it touched on like how Vince handled it and stuff like that. But if you go back to it, the lack of a relationship that Vince had with his own father, he said he didn't even know his last name was he didn't even know he was a McMahon. He didn't know who his dad was until he was like 12. He apparently lived with his mom and his stepdad, and there was abuse there on a daily basis, verbal, physical, whatever. I don't know. If there was anything else, he probably wouldn't admit to that. I'm surprised he honestly admitted to that in the interview, but I guess he had talked about it in a like a Playboy interview long ago or whatever. But again, knowing that he's somebody that likes to be in control of everything, and doesn't like when he sneezes, like, I'm surprised that he put that information out there in the first place. But it's one of those things where it's repeating the pattern of the environment around you too. Like, the fact that his own father didn't say "I love you" to Vince until like just before his deathbed, that is like, it's almost like, what else could we expect of him to become this, this very same person that his own dad was. And I'm not saying, again, this is not an excuse, but it's a very glaring glimpse into, like, when you start seeing all these allegations and everything that came out and all this stuff, it's kind of like, well, it's not that much of a surprise, really. Like, we kind of realized he was this fucking turd all along. But it as an individual, like, I can speak from my own personal experience, like, growing up in a household where I saw my parents fighting and I saw a loveless marriage sort of thing, I was at least smart enough that whenever I got to that point in my life and I had kids and I was with the mother of my children, that I went, man, I'm not happy in this relationship and I don't want to end up like how they were. I don't want to end up in this loveless marriage. I'm going to do something different. And I did, and I'm much happier for it. But unfortunately, not everybody is has that foresight or whatever, or has that self-awareness to not fall back into those same patterns and that same, type of creating those same types of environments. So it was interesting to see, like, to hear that about him and, like, the relationship that he had with, Vince Sr., growing up and stuff like that. And then unfortunately he repeated that same sort of type of relationship to Shane. But it's
your point of bringing up his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of something that I thought when I was watching this. I wonder if, leading up to this documentary, because these interviews were done in like 2000, 2001, 2002.
No,
or 2022.
Yeah, 2021 and beginning of 22, but right before all the shit actually became public, because they mentioned that in the very beginning of the documentary, and I think like the third episode in or something, they put the a note at the beginning of it or whatever. And it's interesting, like, that all this stuff, they recorded all these interviews, and then essentially all this information came out, that first set of allegations about him paying off the hush money, and the big issue with that was, did he use company funds to do it? That was the whole, we had talked about that before. It was like, it's not even the moral dilemma aside that he was having this, like, consensual affair with somebody and paid them hush money. It was the matter of, how did he pay them? That was the big deal from a legal standpoint. So, like, all this stuff came out, and I think there was only Bruce Pritchard's short little interview.
I think Cody too. Because that was one of the things that I took note on, was that, like, I think Cody and Bruce were the only ones who had, like, that little date stamp after these allegations came out.
Yeah.
I think those were the only two that were involved in WWE that actually spoke. I know
Bruce. I know Bruce for sure. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know. But before I digress just a hair, for that, I think it was also Meltzer was another one. Now he's not directly involved with WWE. That's kind of a gray area if he is or not. But, like,
as far as, like, publicly employed people in the company, like, Cody and Bruce were the only ones. Like, they didn't have Stephanie or Shane or Triple H, Shawn Michaels, none of the Stone Cold, Cena, Rock, none of them gave any sort of interview.
No.
After the fact.
Yeah.
But
so, I mean,
before Poot gets into his thing, what I wanted to say off of, what Tom had mentioned about Vince's past, is that it really jumped out to me. Like, again, speculation. I'm wondering if Vince had a hint of an idea that there was going to be some sort of shit hitting the fan, because he really tried to make, the way he talked about himself is it really seemed like he tried to humanize himself to the viewer. Like if you were to take a step back, if it wasn't us watching it, if it was like, my parents watching this that don't know anything about Vince McMahon and WWE, he would come off to them as like a very humanized person. And I think that was deliberate. I think, and again, Vince McMahon is a fucking performer. He is probably one of the best performers in wrestling. And he knows how to act. And I think he was trying to humanize himself. And I just don't know if there was some sort of like hint that something was going to be coming. And if he humanized himself, maybe he'd be able to save a little face. Maybe, he could put a spin on what was about to be released to the public. But I'm telling you,
Absolutely.
pay attention.
Absolutely,
He
they
tried
know.
to humanize himself in this.
Like, that's, for whatever reason, this, dark cell of, the media. Like, this group of, weird fucking, sexual deviant predator fucking ditties are all, they... And I guess it's not just them. You see it a lot. I see it a lot with, athletes and shit that know whenever the dam is about to break. They got ears on top of ears on top of ears. They have people that they pay to stay plugged in. And for as unplugged as Vince McMahon was, I guarantee you he had people that were watching for these signs and these shadows. I absolutely think that he probably had a good year, if not two, of knowledge of this happening. Now, the problem is, quote unquote problem was for him anyway, there was also a lot of shit going on. During that time period, his son-in-law also was having fucking heart issues. Whether he cares about Paul or not, is I guess I would think probably not, but maybe, who fucking knows. His business had its first actual competitor in over, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So and this third brand that was succeeding, overtly succeeding, was suddenly hemorrhaging, and not doing great. So all of these things were happening at the same time. And he was shooting for this fucking documentary. So I absolutely think he knew that shit was coming down the pike, one way or the other. And he was like, okay, I better do some damage control now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen some quotes and things. And yeah, it sounds like he comes off as aloof, trying to make a difference between Vince McMahon the person and Vince McMahon the character. Well, Beef the Legend is a different character than Jeffrey Martin. Is it though? Or is it just me dialed up to 11? Dialed up to 13 even. And I think that that's where the best performers in the world are. They tell you, "Oh, I'm an actor. I have different roles." No, I think that just the roles that they succeed in the most are just them, but supercharged. And I think that that was absolutely the Vince McMahon character. And again, based upon what I'm seeing here and hearing about his quotes in the documentary, no, he was trying to be like, I'm an actor. I'm an actor. I'm not a bad guy. I'm not the guy on screen. Well, no, I mean clearly not. But also, you kind of were. So
So with this, watching this documentary, it's like there was how many episodes were there? 5?
Six.
6?
Six. Yeah.
5 of the 6 episodes, it was everything that I had heard before. It was a rehashing of everything. It was just kind of said a different way. Having McMahon there, you know, kind of like, you know, for lack of a better term, putting it this way, Beef said like he was kind of playing the little shucksy doodle, like I'm not that guy. Like, you don't know me. And I got so sick and fucking tired of hearing Bruce Pritchard and Vince McMahon say, you don't know. You don't know. Like, you don't know. And part of it, I think, part of them saying that shit about Vince McMahon and the way things run behind closed doors, not in the lascivious way, but like business-wise, personality-wise, you know, Vince's actual inner circle is very, 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 very small. It's like pretty much it's him and Bruce Pritchard and Mark Calloway, and, you know, depending on like Brock Lesnar, you know, it's really small. So they just kept it. Well, you don't know. And like, I don't know if the other two guys, I want to hear your opinions on this. I have a little bit more to kind of say on this, but like Mark Calloway looked so fucking uncomfortable during all this. Boy, he looked uncomfortable. You know, and I don't think it's, well, he's aging, he's not training. He looked like he was waiting for the fucking sort of Damocles to drop and like get hit with like crazy questions or whatever. So
he looked unsettled.
Yes, he looked unsettled. He looked
very un-Undertaker-y.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said that these interviews were like done in the past, right?
They were done in 2021,
2020, 2021.
Okay,
like,
it was
so
the latest. The latest of them in 2022, minus the Bruce and Cody ones that were timestamped. There were some that were done in 2022, but it was early 2022, like before the allegations came out public in June. Yeah.
Don't care about the allegations. My point here is that Mark Calloway is a notorious guy who was very loath to say anything in the media or the public eye that wasn't The Undertaker. He did not like breaking kayfabe at all. Like, he was one of the stalwarts of kayfabe. Is it possible that his uncomfortableness on the hot seat, as it were, was maybe due to still being somewhat of like The Undertaker before he like hung it up?
I don't think so personally, just because of from all the stuff that I've seen, other clips and things online and little reels of like Undertaker talking now like as Mark Calloway. I think he's gotten pretty comfortable with dropping the kayfabe over the like since he's more or less hung it up.
My point was that, like, and yes, that's 100% true. Like, he is absolutely like loquacious, and I love hearing Mark Calloway talk about like himself as The Undertaker, like wrestling. But my point was, like, at this point, he was still, quote unquote, an active competitor. The Undertaker wasn't really wrestling too much anymore, but he was still there, you know, for various things. They still did the, you know, in case of glass, break out The Undertaker. So like, and he basically kind of kept that cloud of mystique around him until he retired, or until the Hall of Fame. Once he was in the Hall of Fame, he was like, okay, now I'm Mark Calloway. Now let's go. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you think,
yeah, maybe.
Because this was a time before that shroud had dropped, maybe that's why he was a little bit uncomfortable, or do you think it was because he knew what was coming?
Both.
Probably both.
Okay.
But before I want to let Poop get to his point, the one thing I'll take away from like with Beef's question with The Undertaker, like Mark Calloway says it, he's like, I'd take a bullet for Vince. Like, he's stuck by him through the years and everything like that. Obviously, like, you know, the time in the company leading up to the Attitude Era and everything like that. Like, he was in the trenches, with Vince, and he stuck by him and everything like that. So, I feel like he's got this sense of loyalty to Vince, and he probably didn't want to say anything that would be too damning. But he said, like, flat out, he's somebody, Vince is somebody I'd take a bullet for. Like, he cares about him that much.
I do want to talk about that crew, because you guys said about 4 names in there that I think bear discussing: Taker, Stone Cold, Rock, and Cena. Like, I think that those, I want to have a discussion about how they interweave with Vince. But I do want to hear Poot's point, because, again, I am kind of running blind here, so I'm enjoying it. Go ahead, Poot.
Okay. So my point before the Callaway tangent, which is pertinent, but the thing that I was saying about this documentary, it is a rehashing of all the shit that we heard about. They focused on, like you said, about Bret Hart being in there. I was like, man, fucking, I don't know how you guys took Bret Hart being in there either, but like, I took it as like, okay, we're rehashing the same thing. He's bitter. I'm not gonna lie, I teared up a little bit when he was talking about Owen and how Owen calmed him down and everything and all that. But the point is, with this overarching thing, 5 of the 6 episodes, I heard it all before. I've heard it all. It was rehashed. I'm like, yeah, I know this. Yeah.
Right.
It was the end of the 5th episode where it talked about Shane McMahon wanting the company and wanting to take over. Or it was whenever he wanted to get into a project, or he wanted to get into something. He wanted to buy UFC. At one point, Shane McMahon wanted to buy UFC. And he's like, this is perfect. This fits in so well. And it's kind of funny how it all came back around, and now WWE and UFC are under the same umbrella. Kind of funny how Shane McMahon saw the forest through the trees on that one. But my point being with this is that he was talking about this, and Vince looked at him and basically went, "You can do that over my cold, dead body." And pulled his jacket aside and said, "There, put the dagger right there. See if you're man enough to do it." And I'm paraphrasing here. And he just said, if you're going to buy me out, he basically was saying, I'll fight you until the ends of the earth. Not like his father did. Vince's dad, Vince Sr. It was like one of those things where Vince is like, that was where I was like, I think that was the first time in that documentary, that was where you threaded the needle and saw into the core of Vince McMahon. And you saw what he was about and the way he viewed his business, his life, his family, everything. I really firmly believe that. Then in the 6th one, when they started talking about the more current, and I use the term again, I'll use a different term to show my lexicon, the more salacious sides of what's currently happened, how he left the company and how he came back, and how he he dropped power but then still finagled his way into power. And it's just like you saw him transform into the character that he always was. And you saw a man desperate to hold on to his youth, dyeing his hair. You saw a man desperate to cling on to his empire, no matter what, no matter how, no matter where, no matter when. He was just desperate to not let it go. And it took these actions, these things, for it to finally be like, no, fuck you, old man. You're not doing this. And it covered it. and then having Bruce Pritchard at the end of it sit there and say this is a hit piece. You're not. Yeah. You're just trying to make Vince McMahon look like an asshole, and he's not. Listen, and then Bruce Pritchard talked about how Vince made sure that his wife had the best cancer treatment and took her 4-year life expectancy, and she's still alive to this day, I believe.
Yeah, 24 years later.
20 something,
yeah.
24 years later. She's still alive and still kicking, which is incredible. And, but the thing is, one selfless act, or the couple selfless acts that Vince McMahon may have done over his years, or the good things that he had done, cannot outweigh the horrible, horrible things that he has done, not just currently with the current investigation that's going on into his actions with his employees, but also over the years. You just can't. Like, he is a monster of the highest order. He is a vile human being, a man that is a self-proclaimed sex addict. He talked about how he has like 3 computers running in his head. It's one is talking to the interviewer, and they said, well, what's the other one thinking about? And he said, I'm thinking about what did he say? It's thinking about having fun, pretty much involving sex.
Yep.
And then he said, sometimes there's a third one. Yeah, he always has an underlying, thing going,
sexual
like get laid. Fine. Yeah, sexual deviant.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, an underlying sexual deviance. It is insane that what he talked about.
To me, that's not shocking to me, but I'm shocked that he would even.
Yep.
Terrible timing.
Oh, absolutely. And again, assuming that he had a whiff of this, or even, all right, I will give the devil his due, and I mean this in the most literal sense. I think that Vince McMahon's a pretty terrible person. There have been worse people on the earth, obviously, but he ranks up there in the filthometer. I think he's a very smart guy.
Without a doubt.
And unfortunately, most of these fucking human slime pieces of shit are very smart. But for someone of his intellect to let that one comment, and here's the other part, not just intellect, but control, to let that one comment slip, even if he didn't outright say, oh, I'm thinking about sex or sexy time or whatever. Even if he did not fucking equate it to sex, if there was a line that could have been drawn to it, him knowing that his past fucking 40 years of awful was out there surprises me. That is something that shocks me, that he would even go near that.
Yeah. That really surprised me too. There was I believe it was the second episode. The second episode and going into the one about the screw job. There was two other things. Poop more or less hit the nail on the head, that a majority of the stuff is stuff I've already heard before, and they just kind of rehash it underneath a different lens. But there was a couple things that I didn't know about that really made me go, oh, well, fuck. And the one's not as big of a deal. The first one is the Wendy Richter screw job. I didn't realize that he more or less pulled the same thing on Wendy that he did on Brett years and years later.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know about the Wendy Richter screw job. So that was different.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I didn't know about that one.
Which is dumb as fuck, because she was probably 30 years ahead of her time. And he had someone who could have absolutely like carried a women's division for him. So the fact that he pulled that shit is dumb. But go on.
So that was the one thing. I didn't know about that. But the other was they talked about it in the second episode was the Ring Boys.
Oh yeah.
boy,
Oh yeah.
That was
Go
rough.
on.
The Pat Patterson thing.
Yeah, so
I have not heard any of this. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so
please,
so
enlighten
there
me.
was so there was I can't remember their names. There's two other like senior officials and Pat Patterson. Now, as we know, Pat Patterson was more or less for the most part in the locker room and stuff like that, and in WWE they said he was, like openly homosexual. I don't think he ever really came out and said anything public about it until years and years and years later, whenever they did like Legends House or whatever. But it was known that Pat Patterson was a homosexual. So Pat and two other like senior officials were named in a lawsuit. I believe the victim's name was Tom Cole. But Tom Cole said, and I apologize if I got the name wrong, but if you watch the documentary, you'll know who I'm talking about because they bring it up. They talked about where there was a ring announcer that had these quote-unquote ring boys.
I don't think it was an announcer. I think it was like the manager of the ring crew, like the one responsible for the ring travel and set up and tear down.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yeah, so it was that guy. But then there was like two other like there was two other senior management people,
executives.
Executives, and Pat Patterson that were alleged to have been having basically sexual misconduct and grooming and shit like that with these young ring boys. And and all this shit came out. So the ring manager and the two executives all got fired or whatever. And Pat ended up getting fired for about a month. Only reason being is that there was a conversation, and I think it was I think Vince talked to Dave Meltzer about it or something, because Meltzer was around that time or whatever.
Did.
And he said, he's like, Vince told me, he's like, one of the three was innocent. And he's like, well, which one? He's like, Pat. Pat was innocent. But like, it was crazy the fact that he like, I don't know how much Vince knew or not, or just kind of.
He had to have known something for him to be able to say to Dave Meltzer, one of them was innocent.
Exactly.
That clearly says that Vince knew the other ones were fucking guilty.
Yeah, exactly. Like that fucking disturbed the shit out of me. And then he said, Meltzer asked him, like, well, why'd you fire him or whatever? He's like, at this point, like, you kind of had to do it as like a PR thing. But then Pat was brought back like a month later. And besides that, like that incident, I think it was Tony Atlas that said, like, oh yeah, Pat would grab my pecker. Pat would grab my pecker in the locker room, and I'm like, like, I don't care if you didn't do that to the kids. But you still did that to somebody else. That's still sexual assault.
Still can't be doing that shit, man.
You can't be doing that, man. Like, fuck no.
That is no different than you walking into whatever sports arena that you're in and grabbing some girl's boob.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that, man.
No.
Like, that's a no-no.
And
that's a no-no.
And that unfortunately, that made me fucking, change my perspective on Pat Patterson, a decent bit. Like, homosexuality aside, like, I didn't care about that. I was like, oh, I thought
that has nothing to do with it. It's all about, hey, man, you can't go grabbing people's
exactly
bits.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if and I'm putting that out there because if somebody goes, well, you're just saying that because he was gay or something, like, no. Like, no, it doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, or bi or whatever. Like, you don't put your hands on somebody without their fucking consent in that way. Like, that's fucked up.
Agreed. But I think the fact that he's that he was gay made it worse.
Yes, especially around that time.
Well, just the fact that, like,
the
I
people,
don't want to
people,
come off.
people will try to correlate the two in the fact that, oh, he was gay, so he must have been touching little boys. Like, no, that's not the case. Like, that's not necessarily the case. But it,
Right,
but
like
but from a
Yeah.
from a
It's still all
very
terrible.
very fucking judgmental lens of it, like, people will make that correlation. But my point with that was the fact that that shit happened, and like,
I mean, it's not that far off of people like making it. It's not like people making a correlation. This dude that filed the lawsuit, the one that claimed that this stuff happened to him, named Pat Patterson. So it's not like someone's just like throwing it out there and he's well, Pat must have done it because he was getting. No, Pat was named along with these other two.
yeah,
Like,
And
he was named by the victim.
And you don't, and in that point, sexual orientation doesn't matter.
No,
That does not
Agreed.
matter. That's not a factor.
no,
a
it's
predator
abuse.
a predator is a predator.
Yeah.
Yep.
Period.
And you know what?
That's it.
Screw Bruce Pritchard. While we're talking about this particular subject, like, screw him and every ounce of your bullshit, Pritchard, you can get fucked too, because the interviewers, I don't know the exact quote. I can't tell you off the top of my head right now, but he asked, about Pat Patterson, and Bruce Pritchard says, absolutely not. No, Pat's not, no. And then the interviewer said to him, you could hear the interviewer in the background say to Bruce, what about the other two? And Bruce just says, well, no comment.
exactly. Like, I'm sorry.
You fuckbag, don't you? Man, if anything, this shined a light on Bruce Pritchard as well. Like, you have to connect some dots and make some assumptions, but those assumptions are not that hard to make.
Yeah.
So that kind of does bleed into the point that I kind of wanted to get to, was talking about the circle of trust, with Vince. The Pattersons and the Pritchards, and as far as talent goes, the Undertakers. John Cena is very close with him. We've seen that, once Vince stepped down, John Cena was seen out on like a dinner date with Vince and his lady friend. So very clearly there are people who continue to back him, and Mark obviously saying that he would take a bullet for him. Is this Stockholm syndrome? And I guess this is kind of more of a I guess ethical discussion than it is a wrestling discussion. So I mean, feel free to tag out, tap out, whatever.
Fuck no.
But at what point do you stop backing a dude? The old adage is back him right off a cliff, right? But once they're on their way down, what's the point of you hanging off of the cliff saying, no man, I got you, and everyone else is like, no, let him drop. And I appreciate loyalty. Don't misunderstand me. I appreciate loyalty, and I would, do anything for you guys. You guys are like my brothers. In fact, you're better than my brother in a lot of ways. No, you're better than my brother in all ways.
Every
and I
way.
respect you, love you more than my brother. All of that said, if one of you, if some shit came out, I'd be like, oh, well, kind of that's over. I don't want to associate myself with that kind of people. And yes, I understand that we're still talking about, allegedly, and nothing is not there. There have been no convictions, but I mean, the fucking proof's out there.
Yeah.
We've all seen it. We've all seen the fucking proof. It fucking happened.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how to feel about these guys. I feel like The Rock made a pretty hard left turn. When he came in and kind of jumped on the board, I think The Rock, that was The Rock saying, fuck this guy, I'm out. But I just, it kind of sort of paints these guys in not the greatest light. And I always just come back to that quote from Spider-Man. You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And like the more that I find out, and again, this is not. I don't want to make it seem like I'm turning a blind eye to everything else. This is absolutely a culture problem with like the top 5% of of the country. Like the people who do very well money wise have these like weird preclusions that they can somehow get away with. We've been finding out way more about people in Hollywood and shit that like are filthy, like to their core. So it's not like it's a wrestling only thing, but obviously we're a wrestling podcast, so that's where we're focused. I, I'm a little flummoxed because I want to say, if I was in that position, I'd be like, fuck that guy. But also, like, if he's been nothing but good to Mark and to Steve and to Dwayne and to, is John Cena's real name John? If he's been
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
but good to those guys, like, and he has basically given them all millions of dollars, like that's a tough nut to crack.
Here, let me try to put this into a little bit of perspective. I think you think you might be missing just a tidbit here. I don't think, I think it's less on like career and money. I think that plays a part, but I think it's much less that. I think because a lot of these guys, I'm pretty sure it was John, definitely Taker, I think it was also definitely Austin, said that they see him as a father figure.
Oh, there's
They
so
had
many.
a better relationship with him than they had with their own fathers. Like they were closer with him than they were closer to their own fathers. So I think it's less of a company, career, money thing, and it's more love. Like I think it's, and not, in any sort of nasty, but like in the purest of forms, I think it's love. And
It was
I kind of
Cena was one of them, and there's been many wrestlers that have said that. Jericho has said it. Lots of people have. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I equate kind of like this situation and them sticking by Vince. I think of myself, like if I'm put in that position, like if someone says allegedly, like allegedly Beef did this or Tom or Poot, like somebody made some sort of wacky, wild, horrible accusation towards one of you three. Like, I have such high regard for the three of you that, like, even if, like, someone is claiming abuse or, like, someone shows, like, well, here's some text messages of this or, like, whatever. Like, my feeling on that is like, you've got to fucking prove it. Like, you've got to show me
Unequivocal proof.
You've got to give me 100% proof to tell me that this is what they did, because I don't believe you, because I know them and I love them, and like they are, like I think that highly of them, like, and I care for them, and like you can't tell me that they did this. Like, no. And even if you're telling me that they did, I'm standing by them until you give me irrefutable evidence, because I know them. You can't convince me otherwise. Like, well, you can, but like it's got to be fucking concrete, irrefutable evidence that one of these three guys did this heinous thing, because I don't know them like that. I don't believe that they have that in them. Like, that's not who I know that they are. So I think that's kind of the lens that they're seeing Vince in. Like, here's all these accusations, here's what this woman said that he did. She's producing text messages, but like, she's producing 90, and I'm not defending any of this, I'm just saying, like, from their standpoint, like she's producing 90% of it is like from her side of things. Like, there's not a whole lot of texts that are going, from her to him. So I can see how they're like, damn it, this is horrible and this sucks and these accusations are terrible. But like, you've got to give me irrefutable, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's how they see him. They see him as someone that they deeply care about, not because of career and money, but because of who he, the man, was to them. And I think it's going to be tough for them, like, to be convinced otherwise. And if they get that irrefutable proof, like if he's convicted federally and then convicted civilly, like, that is going to be such a terrible pill for them to swallow, not because like they're trying to defend him, but like they see him like, you know, I see Beef or Poot or Tom. Like, there's just, you can't fucking tell me that one of these three guys did something that terrible. There's no fucking way. No way.
So I'm with you on that, because like I think it also just maybe they're legally also looking to not get themselves involved in some sort of, if they say the wrong thing, then Vince sues them for defamation or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Because obviously, like, the shit that Vince has been through, the trenches that he's fucking crawled out of, and the things that he's avoided, like the shit with the steroid trial and like this and that and everything else, like, you know, it's almost, you know, I'm sure he probably thinks of himself as bulletproof to a certain degree. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of other people that think, we've said it before, like, he is slimy as hell. He's fucking weaseled himself out.
He's the Teflon Don.
I will bring up a personal story. I know somebody. I have a friend. And
their name's Bleef Blarton.
Nope.
Mm.
I'm kidding. I don't even want to put that out. I don't even want to put anything remotely close out in the universe. But like, I have this friend, and their father was put into jail for some involvement with a minor and stuff like that. He turned himself in. It was basically he was having an affair with this lady, and then she like tried to bring her underage daughter into it. Now, when I say underage, I'm not talking like, you know, a kid, but still, regardless, in the eyes of the law, a minor's minor. I think I don't remember exactly. She may have been like 16 or 17. Still doesn't make it any better. But the point being is, the first time I heard about that, I was in that disbelief too. I'm like, no, not him. Like, I can't see that. Like, it was shocking. I didn't know how to feel about it. And, you know, I mean, I accepted it pretty quickly. Like, wow, that's fucked up. I'm glad that he turned himself in. He had at least that sense of that self-awareness to go, you know, this is fucked up, and like, I can't undo what's been done, but I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to turn myself in. So he did. I went to go see him while he was in prison with my friend. I believe I may still not be on the visitation list. I don't remember. And I had no idea how I was going to react, because at that time, then when I went to go see him, I already had my son. I think I may have had my daughter at that point. And now I'm sitting here as a father going, how the fuck can I look him in the eyes and just not view him in this other light? And the craziest thing, like, it's one of those things, like, I forgave him in a sense. Like, I mean, he didn't do anything to me personally, but like, as a human, I forgave him for his actions, but I wouldn't forget. Like, I will never forget that. It will always be in the back of my mind. And when I tell you that it was like as if, I hate to say it, like, it was as if nothing had ever happened in his demeanor and how, like, my interaction was with him or anything. It was just like he was the same, you know, like, kind-hearted dude or whatever. But still, in the back of my, like, I'm sitting there talking to him in a fucking, like, state penitentiary prison. But I don't know. there's this part of your brain that as humans, like anytime we go through trauma, the human brain will do what it needs to do to protect itself. It's the same reason why when mothers go through childbirth, you forget about the pain and stuff, and you're like, oh yeah, I want another baby at some point, because your brain protects your body from these certain things. That's why like people will regress abuse and stuff like that that's been done to them for years and years and years, and then it suddenly they're in a fucking therapy session and they have a breakthrough. Like, I say all that to say, like, in my experience with, you know, having that, I can understand to a degree how people would still go like, yeah, but he's like a father figure to me or whatever. Like, even though if you look at the timeline of things, and which I want to get to after we've exhausted some points, like just kind of the bullet point of different fucking allegations and deviant points that have been brought up, because there was some shit there was still a couple things I didn't know about, or there was at least one that I didn't hear about until watching this documentary. But I personally can understand how somebody like a John Cena would go like, yeah, he's always been like a father figure to me, because I had that same relationship with this particular person, that they were like a second father to me. But in the back of your mind, you're like, you have to make that acceptance at some point. Maybe they haven't made that acceptance, or maybe they haven't and have gone like, okay, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. And I know that, you know, he very well may be a monster. I'm like pretty sure of it, but I'm just not going to say anything damning, because what more can I say that hasn't already been said or rehashed or, you know, said by somebody else? So maybe that's where they're coming from. And again, not like anything else, not making excuses for anybody, not excusing bad behavior, but trying to understand from a psychological standpoint. Like, you know, it's not an excuse, but it is a reason why somebody may be acting a certain way. So
it's just an unenviable position, I suppose. I didn't really think about it like from like the father figure aspect, but
mhm.
again, like that goes back to my, you know, previous point of like having that dude who's manipulating everything and manipulating the way that you feel about him by how he doles out his emotion.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I get it, and it is definitely an unenviable task, because yeah, I mean, like Ransom said, man, like I don't, you know, if someone was like, hey, this awful thing happened with, you know, one of these guys, I'd be like, no, nope, nope, did not fucking happen. And even if they're like, no, you know, everybody knows, I'm like, no, because like your point, Tom, you know, our brains will like protect itself from the trauma.
Yep.
Um, it's 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 just I think too bad. I think is the emotion I come around to. Um, it's unfortunate that like, because with that list of those, we'll leave Pritchard off. Although, with all due respect to Pritchard, he sounds like he's one of the guys who has booked a lot of the good stuff. But like the four talents in question that we mentioned, you know, Taker, Rock, Austin, Cena. Like, I just named a fucking like Mount Rushmore, right?
More or
Like,
less, yeah.
if that's not a list, if that's not a list of the greatest of all time, you know, so like, and the only reason Hogan's not up there is because Vince sold him down the river on the fucking steroid trial. Otherwise, I'm sure that Hogan would be in Vince's back, you know, have his back too. So like, I he again, I don't want to like make things there that may not be there, but man, it sure seems like Vince at some point was like, "Hey, I'm a pretty bad dude. And like if people find out how bad of a dude I am, I better have some of the best wrestlers of all time have my back and not believe a damn word of it." I don't know. Like that's I guess is a stretch, but like man, I I can't even imagine trying to like wade through that shit.
Right. Like so if somebody were to take these list of events that I'm about to rattle off for you here before I run to the bathroom to piss, and presented them to a taker, I don't know so much about Cena. Like I don't think he's as deeply. How do I want to say? I don't feel like the tendrils are as deeply ingrained in Cena as they would be like a Taker or a Bruce Pritchard or a Stone Cold. I don't know so much about The Rock. The Rock I feel like is, he's
good at making business decisions. And the only reason I lump Cena in there is because I just keep coming back to like that visual after Vince was ousted, after like we knew about all this shit. They had that picture of Cena out to dinner with fucking Vince McDisney.
okay.
And
I was
Vince McDisney's
Vince
like
McDisney.
25-year-old girlfriend.
I wanted
Like,
to ask. I wanted to ask when it was because I hadn't seen that picture, so I wanted to ask when it was. If
Yeah.
it was before or after
It was Vince's.
Walt Disney
Yeah,
doppelganger
it was
look.
Vince's. No, it was during that. It was right after. I think it was right after he was ousted. Pretty close to it. And
It was
It was his
after he was
birthday.
ousted the first time from WWE.
Okay.
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 This was before he came back, took back control of the board, and initiated the sale.
Right.
Okay.
So this would have been during like Stephanie, Nick Khan, co-CEO.
So this was
time frame.
probably before the text messages and shit came
Yes,
out,
it
right?
was absolutely
Yeah.
before that because that
Okay,
came out
okay.
after TKO happened.
Yes.
Okay. Then maybe we'll give Cena a pass then.
Okay.
But like, and again, I think
This was all
you're,
just
you're,
hush
you're,
money
you're
ousting.
Right.
you're nailing the point in The Rock that I think he's really good at making business decisions, and if that means
Oh yeah,
getting someone off into the fucking stratosphere, whatever.
because the Rock's
The
looking at his
thing that
brand going
blows-
like, "Is Vince good for my brand? Nope. Okay."
Like,
The thing that blows my
Taker, though, like are very much. I still honestly believe that they probably still very much would have Vince's back in most matters.
it blows my mind though because he can't do anything to them anymore. So like other than old school like pride of going, no, I've got your back no matter what, thick or thin, no matter what horrible fucking terrible things you've done, I've got your back. There has to be a threshold. No one's loyalty is that diehard, especially when someone has no power over you anymore, unless it's
Brandon
mutually
makes a
assured.
great point
Unless it's mutually assured destruction.
Oh, don't even go down that road.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. You fucking have to at this point.
Yeah.
I would prefer to think of it Ransom's way, where like these guys have like this father figure ingrained in him, and they're like, I can't. Like, I love this man as a paternal figure. I can't let this creep into my mind. And so like obviously none of my family have been ingrained in this kind of shit. But like my family is not clean of being embroiled in things. Nothing so hairy, but like not great. So like I have been in this situation. Not like this situation. Okay, I'll walk that one back. I haven't been in like this situation, but I've been in situations where like my mother has done questionable things and went to jail for it. And my brother is a dickhead that's in fucking jail right now. So like I get it. to that point of like turning a blind eye to it. It's definitely not that, but it's also like this is a person, you know, you loved all your life, or at least the bulk of it for these guys. Like how can you just immediately just drop it at the drop of a hat and say, nah, fuck him.
Right. So
I like that much more than Poot's mutually assured destruction thing, because I don't want to even broach the thought that like Austin or Taker have skeletons in their closet. Bruce, probably.
So
Yeah.
all right, real quick, I wanna run down this stuff here before I take a piss break. But
Oh.
so there was an incident, the first of incidents that like at least had been mentioned on this documentary. Like, this is not in order as they were in the documentary, like episode wise, but there was an episode, or there was an allegation in 2006 that Vince, there was a tanning salon incident where Vince allegedly exposed himself to like the tanning salon worker or whatever, blah blah blah.
He showed her a picture of his junk.
Yeah, and then he and I can't remember.
I'm sorry, just the junk.
And I can't remember whether or not he made advances on her or not, but I'm pretty sure he settled that, whatever dispute or whatever that was. So then the big one, the one that kind of like started the whole fucking snowball effect, was back in June of 2022. That was the first allegations. That was the hush money paid off or whatever, and they looked into it to see whether or not company funds were used. So there was, I think they said $12 million to 4 different women. $7.5 million to a former talent who he forced oral sex with, and then once she declined to continue doing any acts, he didn't renew her contract and fucking fired her. So there was that. Okay. When you hear this all back to back to back, it's very damning. So that whole set of shit, that whole set of allegations forced him to step away, and he quote unquote resigned. Then he returns back in 2023 to basically help sell the company to Endeavor and everything like that. And this is also where we begin Vince's evil Walt Disney doppelganger look. And Steph resigns. So obviously she had like some sort of feeling that like, man, something's not right here, right? In the documentary, we talked about like Bruce's comments about like how Vince helped make sure that Bruce's wife had the best like care or whatever. And literally, like right after you hear those comments and stuff like that too, like I think it was 2 days later after that, then you got the fucking the accusations from Janelle Grant, which is the one that now is like still the looming one, about like where, that's a civil suit, but now Vince is under the federal investigation, so that suit is pending until this federal stuff is up. I didn't realize this because they didn't talk about, I didn't hear about it in the news and stuff, but I heard about it in the documentary. There was a temporary lift of the statute of limitations in 2023 that they basically settled off. Vince settled with this lady referee that like back in the 80s or 90s that he allegedly made sexual advances towards or raped or whatever. Vince said in the documentary that it was consensual. She says otherwise, but at that point, like when Vince talked about it, he's like, well, whenever all this stuff came out, he's like, even if it were rape, which it wasn't, and this is, again, take it for a grain of salt because it's coming from fucking Vince. He's like, the statute of limitations were up on that. The way he said it, like the way he talked about it was so fucking cold and callous. It was ridiculous. And then, like, not directly related to Vince, but, like, I don't know how many people know about, like, the shit with Ashley Mazzaro. That supposedly back in 2016 when they were on one of their, like, overseas tours to Kuwait or something, like one of the, like, entertain the troops sort of thing, she was allegedly raped and stuff by somebody posing as, like, a doctor, and she told, everybody in WWE about it. Like, she told, like, senior officials, and nothing was done. So there's that damning piece of evidence. So then, like, jumping back here to with the shit with Janelle Grant, all the shit that we're talking about, like the text messages that have come out and the shit that, alleges Brock Lesnar in there involved in some sort of way, capacity, like that basically she was promised to Brock and stuff like that. Vince finally resigns a day after that lawsuit is filed. Like, so when you look at all this pattern of stuff, it's really damning. Like, and that's not even, like, this more recent stuff isn't stuff that they, like, harped on in the documentary by any means. Like, it was in the last episode, but it wasn't stuff that was harped on. Like, it wasn't a complete hit piece, but they did touch on this stuff because it happened, like, pretty much, once they were, like, a lot of stuff started snowballing, like, while they were already in mid-production, or whatever, they had to stop production at a certain point. And so, as it stands, currently, Vince is currently under federal investigation related to the allegations of sexual misconduct and trafficking. Brock Lesnar has not publicly commented on his involvement in the allegations, and Janelle Grant's lawsuit is paused while the federal investigation is conducted. So now I would love to see an interview with somebody in Vince's circle now, currently, after all this shit, after the fact of, hey, Vince McMahon is currently under federal investigation. I would love to see if they still have that same sort of gusto or always like a father figure to me sort of attitude when all this shit's laid out there. Because
It'll never happen.
You know what I mean? Like I can absolutely see, unfortunately, I can see Vince and whoever else in management, turning a blind eye to the Ashley Mazzaro stuff. Kind of like almost the same way with, like, Joe Paterno and the whole fucking Penn State shit. Like, you may not have been directly involved and you may not have been committing these acts, but the fact that if you knew and you did nothing about it, it makes you just as bad. Like, how the fuck?
Complicit.
You're complicit.
Yeah, complicity is also fucking a crime too.
Yeah, like,
Yep.
How do you
You never
not,
will.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you?
Those interviews,
They'll never happen.
it'll never happen.
Yeah, because you'll get a no comment from Bruce Pritchard. The same way he fucking no commented on those two other executives that were fucking pedophiles. Like, that shit there. That shit there is the most damning to me, and that is the shit that sickens
Well,
me.
and again, it's also, I think Ransom mentioned earlier, it's also a legal thing. Like, if they say fucking word one, then all of a sudden somebody's legal team's gonna be like, that's fucking slander.
Yeah.
Like, let's get them, boys.
Yep.
So here's the thing:
So,
you'll never have you'll never have anybody that's involved with Vince on a positive side, current employee or former, comment on Janelle Grant as long as the investigation is pending.
Right.
Never.
Unless they're
They
subpoenaed.
never will. Well, I mean, if they're called to testify, sure, but like just like a random interview with somebody, never. It'll never happen. I'm gonna hedge a bet that when this federal case is concluded and the civil case is concluded, regardless of the verdict and the outcome, I would still hedge a bet that nobody says anything about it.
Yeah.
Because even if Vince is found not guilty, the amount of evidence that's going to come out if the feds take him to trial, because the feds aren't going to take him to court unless they think they can win.
Right.
And they're not going to take him to court unless they have a lot of evidence that they can put up there and say, like, check this out, guys. With the amount of evidence that will be presented against Vince in a federal trial and then in a civil trial, if that goes forward, at that point, to have someone still defend him, I think would look terrible. And I think instead of condemning him, they will just no comment their way through it. Like, I just don't think that anyone is going to give it, because I don't think it's what benefit to them would it be for someone to sit down with them and go, so, Mark, you saw this man as a father figure. You would take a bullet for him. He was found guilty by the feds of, sexual misconduct and trafficking. He was found, guilty in a civil suit, for all the terrible shit that he did to General Grant. Talk to us about that. There's zero benefit for any of these people to give an interview and talk about it.
Right.
So I don't imagine we ever will. Like, the only way is if Vince burns a bridge with them and they're like, okay, well, here we go. Guns blazing. Let's do it, Vince.
And I imagine that, like, that's probably gonna be noted on, like, once the shit, I say hits the fan, but it's already hit the fan, but, like, once the shit actually goes through and once he's convicted, which I think is, again, jury's obviously still out. The jury hasn't even fucking begun. Like, to
That's the thing. Look how long it's been. Look how long it's taken.
Well, so
Like, he's been doing shady shit since he was a young man. Look how long it's taken.
How isn't the shit with him, like, using company funds to pay off? Like, was that ever resolved? I don't.
No one's talking about that shit. Like, basically embezzlement.
Yeah, like, I think the only reason that no one's talking about it is because they're like, oh, fuck, sex trafficking? Oh, that's way fucking worse than embezzlement. Let's do that. So, like, that was never resolved to my knowledge. But,
well, there was an SEC something suit filed against him for paying off women with company money. And again, like, I don't know if that was resolved. If it was, it was very quietly resolved.
Right.
And I would have to imagine if it hasn't been resolved yet, like,
I want to. Sorry, I want to. I want to say, I'm not 100% sure. I want to say that it was resolved because I think if he was still under investigation for that, I don't know that the TKO / whatever, like, Endeavor board would have let him be on as an executive. You know what I mean? I think I'm not 100% sure. Somebody would have to fact check me on this. I think it was discovered, like, he didn't use direct company funds to pay the hush money to these women or whatever. Like, it wasn't like,
is it his personal money?
Yeah, like, it wasn't the direct company funds. Like, it, like, okay, we have these funds allocated for contracts or whatever and stuff like that. It wasn't anything that he pulled from there. I think it was whatever money he had, coming out of his personal pocketbook or whatever, that he paid this hush money to them. I believe, and I only say that because I don't think TKO would have let him on as an executive chairman on the board or whatever, with the sale of the company and everything.
I do because that's probably built into that shit. Like, that was probably, like, clause A.
Where
Vince
if he was
McMahon cannot be ousted unless he's found guilty of X, Y, or Z. Knowing that he could probably use more of his money to make it go away.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but yeah.
My initial point with all of this is that, like, even after everything is all said and done, I don't think anybody, Mark, Stone Cold, Cody, anybody, takes an interview where this is even broached.
Nope.
Like, and I think that they say, I will talk to you, but I will not mention They may not
Yeah.
even fucking mention Vince Mcmahon. Like, well, I'll talk about Vince McMahon, the boss. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
And
you go
know,
anywhere near this question, I stand up and walk interviews over.
Yep, and I sue you for slander. Like, and I think that that's just gonna be what it is. So
Yeah,
like, I think
That's going to be
honestly,
business as usual going forward.
unless we get crackpots like Ryback, which by the way he was in the news like today.
Doing
that are
what?
he do?
Being a walking,
Oh.
talking human knuckle?
accusing Triple H of
Oh yeah.
cheating on Steph with Caitlyn, the diva Caitlyn.
Oh, fuck
Celeste,
you.
and then like giving her hush money for that. But in his usual like Ryback ways. So
He's
like
going to
unless you
wind
get
up
some
sued.
like unhinged, oh yeah, absolutely, he's a dumbass. But unless you like get some unhinged person with a vendetta, unless somehow the McMahon family fucks over, Mark Calloway or Cody Rhodes the wrong way. And again, I don't even know that Cody is like that in deep with it. I think that he is just a kind of a guy that's a little bit loyal. But like Mark, I think Mark Calloway is kind of like the keystone here.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know that there's a big enough fuck you that they could do
No.
to make him turn on. So honestly, I think that this documentary is about as deep as we're gonna get. I think that we'll see a Dark Side of the Ring someday, but it's gonna have the exact same information.
We
So-
probably won't get anything new until
Right.
some sort of trials are held.
I don't.
So
I don't
if
even
I-
think them
if
then.
I-
I think at the end of the day, I think. Well, I mean, we'll get the evidence from the trials. So like once there's a guilty verdict or a not guilty verdict, but once there's a guilty verdict, I think we'll find out all the information that came out in that trial as like legal facts. But like beyond that, I don't think we're getting any more information because again, I think that everybody is going to be very tight-lipped about it. And I think Tom said I'm not sure, but somebody said that he keeps his inner circle very small. So like those people are going to be fiercely loyal to the end.
So if I may, for anyone out there who wants this documentary, but not the diet version, which is what I kind of feel the Netflix documentary was. I was entertained, and everything, and it was an interesting thing to have Vince there. I would have really, really loved if he would have actually spoken and gotten the last interview that wasn't canceled because of these allegations. But if you want a deep dive on Vince McMahon, his life and everything, there's a podcast called Behind the Bastards, and they do on like shitty incidences, but shitty people throughout history, basically giving their life story and saying how they became.
You told us about this on the last podcast. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's go watch it. Go listen to it.
Is it a lot more gritty?
A lot more
than this one.
A lot, yes. So it doesn't pull punches and try and put McMahon in a good light. They like it's, and like I think I don't know if I said it before. The longest series of episodes before, I think it was on like Hitler or something like that. It was like 4 episodes, which was they're like about 45 minutes to an hour long. Vince McMahon's took 6, and they said they could have done more.
Yeah.
So if you really are curious about the ins and outs, that's where I learned about the Ring Boy thing. That's where I learned, like, they really, really go deep on this. So do yourself a favor, like, check it out.
After you're done listening to our podcast, go listen to that one.
So, no surprise. You know, months, years down the line, if I forget everything about this podcast, no, if I forget everything about this documentary, I can confidently say this. The one thing that I will remember about this documentary is a quote by, and again, this should be no surprise, Paul Heyman.
Oh,
Paul Heyman has a quote in this documentary that when he said that, I went, shit, Paul. This was after, like, someone had talked about, like, I think Vince McMahon having affairs or whatnot. Paul Heyman said, Vince McMahon has ever only had one monogamous relationship in his life, and that has been the WWE.
Yep.
Like, Paul Heyman said that, and I was like, fucking guy, like, Paul Heyman fucking knows. And he said that quote with a smirk on his face, like, I'm telling you, like, and I don't think he's wrong. I think he's absolutely right.
To pull a Homer Simpson, I'll say monogamous so far.
Paul Heyman is the person on there that I wanted to hear from more.
Yeah.
Because he does not pull punches. He does not sugarcoat things. And
yeah, I don't know why the producers wouldn't get him.
I mean,
I've heard nothing about what he said on the podcast or on the documentary. I don't know if they were just trying to, like, to Ransom's, like, earlier points, like, achieve to, like, the lowest common denominator. But my God, Paul Heyman's a dude who fucking hates Vince McMahon. I would love to hear him fucking just go wild on it.
But there was a surprisingly little amount of Paul Heyman interviews in this documentary.
Yep.
But why? That's the question. But why?
Because I don't
Damn
think that
Netflix.
Paul Heyman is a guy who's going to pull punches.
Yeah.
And again,
absolutely not.
like I said going into this, I think I said it in the chat. This was not supposed to be a hit piece. This
Right.
was supposed to be a Vince McMahon documentary because they started this project well before the very first, like, hush money embezzlement scheme came out and long before Janelle Grant.
Right.
So I don't think they were looking to interview, and I can tell you confidently that they were not looking to bury Vince in this documentary, because look at the list of people who were left out of being interviewed. Ric Flair, which I'm sure there was probably,
Oh my.
I'm sure he was involved in some sort of, like, sexual misconduct along with Vince, like probably them together with some, like, knowing Ric Flair, that wouldn't shock me. But Flair, not one interview with him. Not one interview with Vince Russo, who was, again, one of those guys who was very close in the McMahon circle.
Mm-hmm.
Not even
There was not an interview with Cornette, who, again, probably not that close in the Vince circle, but wouldn't pull punches because he's not going to benefit from Vince McMahon from here until either one are dead. So
I bet there was a time. I bet there was a time where Corny was, like, at least a tangent to that inner circle.
Maybe, but definitely not, like, deep delved into it. And the one that, like, really is a tell is Jim Ross. Jim Ross is probably as close to Vince's interworkings as Bruce Pritchard. But unlike Bruce Pritchard, Jim Ross at this point is not a Vince McMahon sycophant. So
sure,
Jim Ross would probably have no problem. I mean, he's a fucking Hall of Famer. What is left for him on the Vince side of things? Nothing. So Jim, I'm sure, knows all the dirty laundry, much like Bruce Pritchard does. But again, Jim Ross is not a Vince McMahon sycophant. So that's a big tell that Jim Ross wasn't interviewed at all for this. And I'm sure because Vince wasn't, well...
Because I feel like this is going to be a good windfall for Netflix. I feel like this is going to get pretty viral.
Yes.
Because everything I've heard, everyone has said it's a good documentary. It was a good watch.
Oh yeah.
Will we see, whether it be, now them saying, oh, fuck, we got way more content, or after everything's kind of sorted out, will we see a part 2?
No.
With some of those interviews, you don't think?
No, 100% no, because of the deal they have with WWE. Because when you paint Vince McMahon in such a shitty light, the amount of time he was with WWE compared to the amount of time that he's not been with WWE,
right,
that really doesn't hold the company as a whole in a good light, because they can make the argument like, look at all these people who were involved. The highest levels of WWE were either involved or complicit or knew about it, did nothing, said nothing, made no attempt. I think with this Netflix deal in Raw, this is probably the last you see on Netflix of it. If you're looking for a hit piece on Vince McMahon, some other network's going to do it. It's going to be somewhere else that's not affiliated with WWE. So like, it probably won't be on Peacock. It's not going to be, I don't think, on any of those networks that's involved in WWE, because again, you paint Vince McMahon in a bad light. 99% of the time, Vince McMahon was the WWE.
That's true. That's a fair point. Which is unfortunate, because I honestly would like to get. I don't care about the minutia. Like, I don't care to find out like the grimy details. I want to hear how it affected those people that I do, the aforementioned like high regarders,
Yeah.
and kind of see where they fall. And again, like, I don't know that we would get full access from everybody, but I guarantee that there are stories that Paul E. Dangerously could tell, that Jim Ross could tell,
Oh yeah.
that would absolutely like
Curl your
finish
toes,
the
yeah.
job, the job, and like bury him completely and fully.
And I could see too, like, and again, this is coming from the more personal stance on all of it. Like, even if there is unequivocal evidence damning Vince McMahon that comes out in trials, whatever, like, I don't think you get interviews with Austin, Cena, Taker. Like, I just don't think you will. And the reason I say that is because, and again, I hearken back to my relationship with you three. Like, you would have to put up a hell of a fight to convince me that the one of you three has done something as what's the word? Irrehensible. Reprehensible as this. But if that evidence does come out, like, I would never want to talk about it. You know what I mean? Like, some sort of damning, irrefutable evidence comes out against Beef. He did this horrible, just despicable, disgusting thing. Like, my relationship with you I wouldn't have the heart to give an interview and say, like, man, I was wrong about him. Like, you know, he did do all these things. I'm shocked. I'm devastated. Like, it's the worst to know that he's absolutely guilty of. Like, I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't want to talk about it. Like, it would be too just heartbreaking to know, like, the man I knew wasn't the man I knew. So I think that's probably why you wouldn't get an aftermath interview with one of these guys, because I just don't think, like, if they have that realization that Vince is this monster, like, it's got to be heartbreaking for them to have to openly admit in an interview, like, no, you're right. Like, he was the worst. Like, man, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do it.
I love Tom's comment about the brain, like, doing what it has to kind of like protect itself. So, like, kind of like sealing it up in a box, and like kind of
Yeah.
having a coping mechanism, you know?
That's another thing. Like I had many moments in this documentary where I'm like, come on, really? But I gotta tell you, the one that I had that most visceral reaction of like, oh my gosh, really? Like you're so full of shit. Was they talked about the streak? They talked about, Undertaker was talking about Mark, was talking about the streak, and that Vince came in to him that WrestleMania and goes, I think we're going to put Brock over. And Taker was like, whoo, he's, kind of shocked, but he was like, okay, well, I mean, you're the boss, it's your company, let's do it. And Undertaker talked about how he got concussed and doesn't remember, the bulk of the match. And then it cuts to Vince McMahon saying, I rewatched the tape and I can't see where Mark got concussed. I think Mark was just in such a hard emotional distraught, about losing the streak that he blocked it out. He doesn't remember because he was so emotionally scarred and emotionally damaged for losing the streak. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Well,
and that's one of the things that kind of floors me. Like Undertaker, Mark Calloway, has this such high regard and like sees Vince McMahon as this, like, he loves him. And then you have Vince McMahon say something so cold and dismissive. Like, Mark didn't actually get a concussion. He was taken to the hospital and was in the hospital after that match for days being treated for a concussion. But no, I think he was just emotionally scarred about losing the streak. He was so dismissive of something so severe like a concussion. Like he just dismissed it. And he didn't dismiss it off of like a Daniel Bryan or Wade Barrett or like some guy. He dismissed Mark Calloway, the man who was probably the most loyal to him outside of his own family, and maybe even more loyal than some of his actual family members. Like he just fucking dismisses him.
That goes hand in hand with what Austin said. I don't know if you've heard this quote.
Yes, about how Austin's not a CTE guy. He just doesn't believe it.
Oh God,
I don't believe in it. And
that was a
all
mess.
I can think of, oh my God, I read that and I was like, this is exactly what the fucking flat earthers say. They're like, I mean, you can show me all these pictures of the world, I just don't believe it. Like, this is a fact. Concussions exist. Concussions hurt your brain. Concussions reduce your brain activity to that of a toddler if you go through it. This is not something that's up for debate, Steve. And so, like, when I saw that Vince McMahon quote kind of like juxtaposed with that Steve Austin quote, I'm like, aha.
Dude,
It's very clear.
Even Taker
it's very clear that, like, good.
Sorry, even Taker pissed me off because he said about, like, after the shit with Benoit, whenever, like, he said that, they were stopping chair shots to the head, or he was like, well, he's like, that, yeah, it kind of sucked. He's like, because, I'm old school, and that's how we told the story in the ring. Dude, the fucking business changes, man.
Find a better way.
Like, find a better way to tell your story without fucking reducing your brain to a pile of fucking mush. Like, even if you don't believe it, you, like, now,
it's a scientific fact. You can't be like it didn't happen. Like, this is a fact.
Like, even if you like every one of them, like, nobody's saying that they don't believe in concussions, but Steve's saying that he's not a CTE guy. Well, if you fucking know that you've gotten concussions before and concussions can happen, like, wouldn't you want to do everything you can to help protect yourself from potential concussions? Like, you fucking dolt. Fucking give me a break. Like,
and then fucking Vince's comments about Benoit saying that the headbutts were worked. Okay, Vince, they sure were. We saw all those fucking headbutts. Like, you can work a headbutt so much, but, like, I don't know. Like, it's very clear that Vince was like, concussions aren't going to hurt you. Work through it. And that bled down to guys like Steve and Mark, who are like, oh no, like the younger generation's just too soft.
Fuck
Like,
that.
no, man, your brains are being scrambled for pennies on a dollar while this guy's sitting on a fucking mountain of money and, other wrestlers' skulls who have been scrambled. Like,
I hope
not...
I think Austin, there might have been a component of him trying to go like, it's not real because it can't happen to me. You know what I mean? It's that like, because he's like, oh yeah, I had 1 or 2 concussions. I'm like, Austin, come on. You've had more. You fucking had more.
The Chris Nowinski interview,
Oh, yes.
as short as it was,
Oh, there was
it
a
was-
Nowinski interview.
Yes,
oh,
yeah.
interesting.
like he
in there,
he
yeah.
talks about like after they make mention of like Benoit's death. The Netflix people interviewed Chris Nowinski, and I like again, this was 2021, 2022, not long ago. And Chris Nowinski even said like he has this foundation that researches CTE and is trying to make strides towards protecting people and helping people and treating people with CTE, and like he's done, like he has a whole foundation. They do research. They have scientific research to back this kind of stuff. And he even said in this interview, and I think like it's a little scary to think about that. And again, let me say it again. These interviews were done in 2021, 2022. I can't remember the timestamp on Chris Nowinski's, but it was 2021 or 2022. Again, not long ago. Chris Nowinski said in this interview that Vince McMahon fought him on the CTE research, and that the NFL fought him on CTE research, and that the NHL is still, as of the time that he was being interviewed, 2021 or 2022, the NHL is still fighting him on CTE. So this is a bigger spectrum problem, because it's not just WWE going, nah, chair shots aren't real, that can't happen, CTE is fake. It's major league sports that are fighting CTE research and CTE protocols, because like
I can
again,
tell you why.
it's going to hurt their business.
Exactly. It's going to hurt their bottom line, not only because it will change how the game is played, but it will also force them to spend money to make sure that their athletes are more secure.
Yeah, that's the scariest thing to me. Like this isn't just like what am I trying to say? Like this isn't just like lasered in on wrestling.
No.
Like these are other major, like some of the biggest sports in the world.
and
The
here's-
NHL,
Capitalism,
the NFL.
baby.
Like
Here's another
jeez.
great example. Like the NFL, they're allowing players to wear these Guardian caps in the league, which look kind of funny, but they protect you, I think, up to like 50 more %. I don't know the actual number, but like they do have a quantifiable resistance to concussions. And the NFL has made a giant joke of it. I saw a fucking TikTok where former player, oh God, what was his name? He would play for the Chiefs, and then the Redskins, his leg got all kinds of fucked up.
Tony Gonzalez.
Nope.
No?
Nope,
Okay.
he was a quarterback.
Oh.
I can't remember. But like he retired because his leg was real fucking bad.
RG. No, it wasn't RG3, was it?
Alex something.
Alex Smith?
I don't remember. Yes, it was Alex Smith.
Yeah.
Talking to Kelsey when Kelsey was wearing the Guardian cap, and he was like, "Oh, your melon looks huge with that thing on," like making a big fucking joke about it. Well, you know what? Like, and Poots 100%, and Ransom was getting there as well. Like that's the point, is that like it would cost them so much more equity, which by the way, they have the fucking scratch. Trust me.
Yeah, they
But
absolutely
like it
do.
would cost them so much more equity to try and protect these players that they'd rather make a joke of it. I think that there are 2 players. There might be more now, but last I saw, there were 2 players actively wearing Guardian caps. One of them is a lineman for the Steelers, by the way.
Oh, really?
In game. They're all wearing them in practice. They're like that is part of the collective bargaining agreement. But like there's only a few of them, and yeah, one of them is a Steelers lineman that wears one, because those are the guys that fucking bust their helmets off of each other the entire fucking game.
Yeah.
Like, let's do better. Like, and I realize that I'm preaching to the choir. Like, us and our listeners are not the fucking problem. It's the, to Poot's wonderful point again, the capitalists at the top of the food chain that are like, ha, those things will make you look silly. And appealing to their toxic masculinity. Do you want to be in the man's game wearing a little bonnet? Like, all this other shit. And,
But-
get back to wrestling. Like, I'm an old school guy. We did things the old school way. Well, there's a reason so many of your old school brothers are 6 feet below the ground right now.
Yep.
And it's because those old school ways didn't work too well, Mark.
The whole, oh, well, we fucking wrestled hurt and shit like that. Well, yeah, you may have done that, but the business has changed. There was this isn't so much more this isn't necessarily related to the injury stuff or whatever, but this is an eye-opening thing. I saw this reel a couple times now. I may have sent it to you guys, where I want to say it might have been Scott D'Amore talking to Chris Van Vliet. And he said there was a quote from a wrestler talking about another wrestler, saying about how he thought, his style and the way he worked, everything like that was a joke and this and that. And he thought it was so bad for the business. He's like, who do you think it would have been, somebody criticizing? And Chris Van Vliet was guessing like, oh, it's probably Cornette talking about somebody. He's like, no, he's like, it was from like Lou Thez, I think. He's like, do you know who he's talking about? Harley Race. He's like, like saying that Harley Race was like such a showboat and this and that, and that he was ruining the business and blah, 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 blah. The business evolves. If you as a human being are not evolving or trying to make yourself better as you go along in life, if you as a person, if you as a business, if you as anything are not trying to evolve, and I'm not saying like to evolve for the sake of evolving, like not progress for the sake of saying, oh, we've done this, but just some sort of self-improvement. If you're not trying to seek that out, if you're not trying to grow to some degree, what the fuck are you doing? Because I'm sorry, like that is complete ass backwards. You would want to common sense would dictate you would want to take these steps. But to Beef and Poot's point, specifically, it's the fucking greed at the top, man. Like it's the fucking NFL not wanting to put this money into investing into something, instating, like just making this, saying, okay, all players are going to wear this. Spend the money on the fucking equipment because you have it. But you know why they won't do it? Because if they spend that money on the equipment and they keep these players around for longer periods of time, that's more money that they have to pay to them for a longer period of time, because it's going to extend the longevity of people's careers. And they just want them on this truncated timeline where they can get the most fucking money they're going to squeeze the most juice they can out of this person and then fucking toss them aside. Fuck that. And if somebody like Undertaker or whoever wants to say, well, that's not how we did stuff old school way or whatever, and they can't see the benefit of having these wrestlers better the business and have longer careers and be able to wrestle into their 40s and 50s and stuff, as long as they can still go physically and as long as they can still perform entertainingly. Like, if you love the business this much, you would want that for the future. You should want that regardless. Like, I know as a parent, I want more for my kids. As somebody, like, I noticed myself at a point where I went, wow, I've done better than my own father. He must be proud of me. And I'm sure that's what he wanted. And I can't understand the fucking ignorance of somebody like a Mark Calloway or somebody going like, oh well, that that's complaining about wanting to help extend the longevity of people's lives and careers in this business that they gave their blood, sweat, and tears for, and they love so much. Like, you're a fucking hypocrite if you're thinking anything other than that. Like, I don't know. I
think we could talk about steroids and cocaine and
God.
booze and everything else.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think pride is one of the worst drugs of all, because when you have pride in something that is misplaced, you'll run through a fucking brick wall for it. And I don't know.
They never say
you know.
they never say cocaine goeth before the fall.
Yeah, right.
I'll
Oh,
say
it
God.
again just for
Wow.
posterity. I kind of wish, and I don't. Did I say it to you guys? Yes. That I kind of wish that like a lot of my heroes, especially wrestling. I mean, there are other guys and girls out there, but like especially the wrestlers, like just retire, go away, enjoy life, and shut the fuck up. Stop giving media interviews that
Yep.
like trap you into a point like saying, "Well, I don't really believe in CTE," because it makes you sound like an idiot, and then I have to say, "Man, was I an idiot too for liking you?" Fuck.
It's funny that you mentioned that, and I feel like I've done a decent amount of shitting on Bret Hart here tonight, but
Yes.
I gotta shit on him just one more time, maybe more. I don't know, but like,
As
one
you
of those
should.
things where it's like the whole pride thing. They talked about, there was an episode I think entitled "Screw Job."
It was.
and
Yeah, it was a third or fourth one in.
So it heavily focused on the Montreal Screw Job, and before that, it was this. They talked about the curtain call, because the curtain call, of course, led up to the Montreal Screw Job, and
Sure.
Bret Hart was quoted, like he said in this interview about the curtain call, like, these guys went out there and they basically killed the business.
They said
Like,
that's the moment kayfabe died, and so did Bruce Pritchard.
Well, yeah, but like Bret Hart says, like they killed the business. Like they pulled the curtain back. They showed everybody, what was going on behind the scenes. Like, and Bret Hart shit all over it. And was like, it was terrible. What a bad call. Like, they should never have done that. They killed the business. Like, blah, blah, blah. But if you recall, after the Montreal Screw Job, Bret Hart goes on some sort of Canadian talk show. I don't know which one it was. You can find it. But, or maybe it was a radio show he called into. I don't know. But, like, Bret Hart basically gave this interview after the Screw Job saying, I was supposed to drop the title, and I had this deal, and our agreement was that I was, going to drop the title, but I wasn't going to drop it to Shawn, and I was supposed to do it on Raw. Like, he lays out what was supposed to take place, and didn't, because he got screwed by Vince McMahon. Like, I never lost that title. I was supposed to hand it over on Raw. Like, you basically are doing the same thing. Yeah, the curtain call came first. But, like, if it's that important to protect the business, like, you're also pulling back the curtain, giving this interview saying how you weren't supposed to lose the title at Survivor Series. You weren't supposed to drop it then. Like, the deal was that you were going to relinquish it on Raw and blah, blah, blah. So, like, you're pulling back the curtain yourself. It's another one of those, like, Bret Hart fucking, holier than thou, biggest, he was the best thing to ever happen to wrestling, and he got screwed, and I'm going to, like, I don't know. Like, it just made me go, like, oh, you're so full of shit, because, like, even now, like,
Yeah, but
you're pissing in someone's Wheaties about the Screw Job, but, like, you go on a radio show and basically pull back the curtain yourself because something bad happened to you.
It's okay because he was cranky pants. Wham.
Ugh.
It's amazing to me how the Austin Brett storyline and like the Bret Hart like American heel turn, but like face the rest of the world. It's amazing to me how much that echoed like what we get of Brett now, and like how much he was like, and I referenced it with the Vince doc about people kind of just being themselves, cranked to 11, like how real it was for him. That
Yeah.
like he thought he was, and all due respect, Bret Hart was one of the, if not the greatest technician in the game. The great technicians now cite, being exposed to Bret Hart growing up.
Sure.
So, like, absolutely, let's give old man Bret his flowers. But, my dude, like, the new generation was not where it's at. Was where it was at. He and Shawn Michaels both failed in the new generation to capture new viewers, to do anything important or exciting. It wasn't
I would disagree with that.
until, well,
That's a big, bold
And
statement,
look,
bud.
this isn't me getting on my knees for Shawn Michaels. Like,
I'll say
they
this about Shawn. Shawn rolled with the punches into the Attitude Era, and that I think is why he was more successful with Bret than Bret. Bret dug his heels in the sand. To me, if you look at that time frame from 92 to about 97, 96. If you look from 92 to 96, the best things that those two guys did for the business was WrestleMania 13, Bret putting over Austin, and the double turn, which Bret technically won, but I mean, he got Austin. He helped make Austin, and B, at WrestleMania 14, Michaels putting over Austin for the belt. I think that was, and yes, could you argue that like that moment would not have been as successful had they not had those like reigns in the new generation era? Yeah, absolutely. But like, to me, I think that the new generation is an unequivocal failure. I don't think that either of those two guys should feel that they did anything really great in that. And the best thing that they did was put over Steve Austin, who apparently doesn't believe in concussions. Or I'm sorry, doesn't believe in CTE. I don't want to get the quote wrong.
Yeah,
what were you gonna say, Poot?
nothing. I just the thing that I think is funny that we're finding from this Vince McMahon documentary, the stuff that we're finding more egregious is not about Vince McMahon, because we're like, yeah, he's Satan. But like, it's kind of a little bit of like the real colors of some of these people coming through that we're like having these egregious things about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that that's bad. That's a very good thing, because it's like, we're seeing, just like whenever Taker was like, well, the chair shots, you're going to take away our chair shots? They're a stalwart part of our blah, blah. Like, Taker, really? Like, I understand the whole, like, badge of honor thing, but, like, every wrestler that talks about getting hit in the head with a steel chair, like, said that it's one of the most unpleasant things in the world.
Sure,
like,
it's not gonna be fun.
No. And like, I know that there are gimmick chairs out there. They exist. But like, they're made of a thinner metal or whatever. But like, a shit ton of them weren't.
Yeah.
A shit ton of them weren't.
You're still striking shit over your head. It doesn't matter. Like, there's
a pretty important organ in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, fairly. Look, I'll say this about the new generation. I will defend both Shawn and Bret. You look at the new generation, their biggest stars that they had were Razor, Diesel, Shawn, Bret, Taker.
Yep.
Razor and Diesel left.
Yep.
So, as far as the new generation goes, they may not have been making money hand over fist, but I am a firm believer that those two, along with Taker, probably kept WWE afloat. So they may not have been generating tons of revenue, like WWE stock might not have been going up, like their income might not have been skyrocketing at the time. But I'm willing to bet you take Brett and Sean out of that new generation equation, especially after Razor and Diesel left. I am confident in saying that WWE does a lot worse than they did. I think those two were pivotal in keeping that company afloat.
Yep.
That's fair. And I
pivotal
don't-
in doing that, you know, and especially like, you know, after the NWO happened, like that's when WCW took off. Like the NWO happened and WCW was the show to watch. And without Brett and Sean, there's yikes. I mean, you could make the argument, well, Austin would have happened sooner, or, you know, The Rock would have happened sooner, or someone else would have stepped up to the plate. We don't know. They might have, but what I do know is with those two there, they were pivotal in keeping WWE afloat and allowing WWE to continue, especially after the NWO and WCW took off like a rocket ship. You know, like I agree, they weren't, you know, breaking records, like they weren't making WWE uber profitable, but damn it, I'm convinced that they kept WWE afloat in a very troubling time.
No, and again, like I'm not saying that that's not the case. I'm saying that I think that Brett has this like I mean, hey, Steve always comes to the aid of Bret Hart. Steve believes, you know, Steve is a loyalist to Bret. He believes that Bret helped make his career, and to a certain point, I think he's right. I think he still would have gotten there. I absolutely think because he's fucking Steve Austin. But like, I think that Bret helped like slingshot him into greatness.
Oh, absolutely.
But all of that being said, like if Steve wants to see a CTE, he just needs to look over at Bret. Because, like, Brett is sounding a lot like Hogan anymore. And that's scary to me.
After this documentary, Brett sounds worse than Hogan.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
that
telling you, like
they're
if you get a chance to watch it, I'm willing to bet that you'll be like, oh shit, Brett put himself over more than Hogan put himself over.
I believe it. I believe it. I just knowing and reading the quotes I've seen of Brett the last 5 years, I believe it. I have gone from being like Bret Hart is my favorite wrestler of all time to Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler growing up to Bret Hart was really fun to watch to Bret Hart was the best technician of all time. And that is that's a downgrade if you can't tell. I just think he's so delusional. And Hogan too. Hogan with all of this fucking talk of like him getting something over or him having this idea or him doing it. Brett is the same way. Brett's like, hey man, without me they would have gone belly up. Maybe, or maybe it just would have taken a little bit longer to get from point A to point B. I don't think Brett's as important to history as he thinks he is. I don't think any one wrestler is important to history as they say they are. The closest, as much as it pains me to say, is probably Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
because
and the thing,
Hulk Hogan was a piece of shit, but he was the right guy at the right place at the right look at the right time.
well, the thing was, sorry, real quick.
Okay.
The thing with Hogan
Go ahead.
is Vince was the brain and Hogan was the conduit through which Vince flowed, because they even say that in the documentary. True. Like if I hate to say it, like you know, Vince made it what it was.
Sure.
If he didn't have Hogan, he would have had somebody else. So
right.
I still think we
Dusty
would have
Rhodes,
got
apparently.
Yeah, Dusty Rhodes or just somebody else. But yes, I will say that, you know, it does take a certain degree of that individual to sell it, because they tried the same thing with Warrior, and they even said in the documentary too, like, you know, after Hogan, we needed to find somebody else, and they went for Warrior, and that obviously didn't pan out well, because because Warrior really didn't give a shit about the business. Hogan at least gave a shit.
They tried with Luger as well.
Exactly,
Like, make him
yeah.
the next big breakout, and that didn't fucking work.
Well, I think the problem with Luger is that for Luger, I don't think it was so much the same thing as Warrior, where like they even said like Warrior didn't give a shit about the business. Like he didn't really get the business as well as like say Hogan did. Like I'll give Hogan his due, and at least he cared about the business. He cared about like let's make money.
I cared about making money. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. What business? Let's make
absolutely.
let me make the most. How can I make the most money for myself and by in turn make money for you? Because the more money you make, the more I'm going to be able to get. But Luger, he was just kind of a charisma vacuum. I think that was what his problem was. But that but all that to say is like with it really Hogan isn't quite as important as he thinks he is, because if it wasn't Hogan, I'm sure Vince would have found somebody that he could have worked that through the way he did, because it was Vince. It was like Vince had fucking his hand up Hogan's ass, just working the fucking puppet strings and stuff, and then so go ahead, Poot.
Yeah, Poot.
I was just gonna point out, I was really hoping that Beef was gonna go, Bret Hart's my favorite wrestler of all time, to Bret Hart was my favorite wrestler when I was a kid, to Bret Hart is a wrestler of all time.
Bret Hart was
That's
a
what I
character
was
from The Simpsons once.
like that. I mean,
I just like, again, shut up. You know who else is doing that? The fucking Rock. Like, how many times, that fucking WrestleMania 40 behind the scenes thing, where The Rock was like, oh yeah, no, that's my idea. Like, I came up with that. Like, it's already starting. It's already starting for The Rock. Can we not just put a fucking muzzle in it? Enjoy your millions of dollars. Steve, you're doing great. You live in a ranch. You're happy. You post Instagram stories with your cats that people love. Do that. Stop saying fucking idiotic things that make me go, I wasted my childhood.
Well, I mean, you look no further when it comes to The Rock. Like, it was evident at WrestleMania. It was evident that like he has a much higher inflated idea of himself than his reality, because you could see that big
stupid fucking entrance he had on
well,
night
not
one.
just that, but like look at it leading up to that. Like on the one episode, it was Raw or SmackDown, whatever. Like the Rock and Roman beat up Cody and Seth, and Roman's holding up his championship belt, and The Rock is holding up Cody's weight belt. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, look, The Rock he can't just hold his arm up in victory. He has to be holding up some sort of prop. And then lo and behold, at the stupid Hall of Fame ceremony,
God,
of all places, they come out with this stupid People's Championship belt, because God forbid The Rock show up at WrestleMania and Roman Reigns has a belt to hold up, but The Rock doesn't. And the whole fucking time, The Rock with that dumb People's Championship draped over his shoulder, walking to the ring, holding it up over his head. The next night on Raw, he comes out to confront Cody, and he has that dumb fucking People's Championship, because God forbid he comes out to confront Cody, and Cody has a belt, but The Rock doesn't. As soon as I saw that, I went, oh no, here it goes with The Rock. He can't just come out and be The Rock. Like, he doesn't need a prop. He really doesn't. He's one of the greatest of all time. Like, your presence there is enough.
You're missing an important point. A belt delivered to him by the family of one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah.
Like, because they're like, Muhammad was the people's champ, but he knew that you were the real people's champ. Like, okay.
How much money did they have to pay that family to show
all of
up
it.
and say that hokey shit? about
big is
you're
The
the
Rock's
real
penis?
people's champion. Oh,
How big is The Rock's penis that he has to feel like all of us have to fit our mouths around it? I
Two.
just two. That's a good answer, Food. I like it. I just shut the
two
fuck up.
dicks.
Just shut the fuck up. Just stop. Just fade away into obscurity. Just please, guys.
I mean, they
Please.
say don't meet your heroes, and like, I think they need to kind of change that saying to don't really know your heroes.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
the more you start to know about a lot of these guys, the more you're like, oh no, like oh no, it just keeps getting worse. The more candid they are, like the more you go like, oh no, like I held them in such high regard, and I'm listening to them now going like, oh no, like I just, damn it.
Just
Yep.
the only solace I can offer you with that is, hey, we're all young and dumb at some point, and we do and believe things that we don't necessarily continue to this day. We learn.
No, I
we
get
grow.
you.
It's
you're
so
right.
don't
You're right.
don't feel too bad about it. But take it as a learning point. We're all
You're right. I mean, like
we're all
hope
young.
is
We're
I'm
all
gonna-
young and dumb at some point.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
crawl up on a soapbox a little bit, and I'm just gonna say my hope is that I hope that we as a culture can learn from this and be better. And not just from Vince McMahon or Bret Hart or Steve Austin, but like fucking all of these like terrible people in Hollywood that are coming out
Diddy.
and Diddy, and we're learning so
He
much
sure
about
did.
like just take a minute and go, okay, let's be better at A, not glorify these types of people, and B, if we become something like this, just be fucking cool. If it makes you happy to buy a bunch of cars, buy a bunch of cars. I'm not telling you have to give your money to charity, but like, don't blow it all on fucking Coke. And like, people that will come out in 20 years and be like, look what this guy did to me 20 years ago. It's not going to end well. Let's just be
Yeah.
better people.
Like every time, especially now, like I never bought into it before, because I don't know where we get this idea, and I think it's a world problem. I don't think it's just an America problem. I think it's a world problem. I don't know where we get this idea of athletes and movie stars being important. It's fun to watch movies. It's fun to watch TV shows. It's fun to watch sports. But like we, the collective we, like the world, hold these people up like they are important or intelligent or that they should matter more than other people. Like I never understood when, it's just one example, like politics. When a celebrity or a sports figure endorses a politician, like, oh, they got this who fucking cares? Like, why do you care? Why do any of us give a shit what athlete or movie star endorses what presidential, like, why should that matter? It shouldn't. Like, that's the thing. At the end of the day, it shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it does, because we look at these people, again, the collective we, the world overall, looks at these people as like they're something special. They do some incredible things. There are athletes that do some incredible things that most people can't do physically. There are movie stars that get on the screen and they're larger than life in these characters and roles that they play. But I don't know when, and I don't know why we continue to hold them in some sort of like holier than thou esteem. Why are we looking at these people going, why does it matter who they endorse or what brand they wear? Or like we base so much importance on these people. And then you have, these stories that come out about Vince McMahon and these, you see these athletes doing shitty things. And now you have these reports about all these, musicians and actors just doing all these terrible things. And you're like, okay, so they are, A, just people, and B, a lot of them are shitty people. But we still look at them and go, oh, we care so much about what they think and what they do and what they say, when in reality, we shouldn't. It boggles my mind to this day that, like, people care so much about what these celebrities and athletes, what they think, what they say, what's important to them. Why is what is important to them important to you? Like, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where the connection or disconnection there is as a society. The only, and they're few and far in between. They're like you said, there are some people that will do good and extraordinary things, that that will give back to charities, that will try to make the world a better place, more or less. Just blanket statement or whatever. And to that, regardless if they're a celebrity or a sports figure, or anything at all, like in those cases, yes, I feel like that could be somebody that anybody could look up to. But again, in a lot of cases, they're so few and far in between, and I don't quite know. I don't know if it's a societal thing of, like, people looking to fill voids in their lives that they themselves have, that they're just, like, seeing that stuff in these other people, or, like, I don't know. Now, I will say, like, in some cases, it's, not saying you should, like, idealistically, like, worship anybody, because at the end of the day, we're all human, we're all flawed, and if nothing else, like, you should just be, again, trying to better yourself. But if you aspire to be like somebody that you say, like, oh, well, you know what, they do all these great things and I want to be like them, that's fine. You can aspire to do some of the same things they do, but do it for yourself, not, idealistically trying to be like that person, that celebrity, that athlete, that whatever. It's, I don't know, man. I'm with you. Like, I don't know. The only thing I will say is, to a degree, I understand why some of the athletes, actors, etc., are held in this high standard, because some of the stuff, a lot of the stuff, almost, all of it, like, it's not something that can easily be done. So there are people, they are masters of their craft. Like, the fact that the people that, the people that are actively signed to the NFL, the likelihood of you, the average human being, just growing up, even if you were very, very much athletically inclined and played sports, the percentage of people that that actually make it to the NFL is very, very, very low. In the same vein, it's very hard to write a hit song. You could toil for years at writing music and stuff like that and not make it anywhere. So I'm not saying these people should be glorified to the extent that they are, but I will give people credit where credit is due, and saying, like, man, I couldn't fucking do that. Like, I can't write that. I can't write that particular hit song this summer. I can't, I couldn't.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, no, yeah, you know what I mean. You know where I'm getting at. Like,
I'm with you on that. Like, no,
yeah.
they're masters of their craft, and they should be, lauded for being masters of their craft.
Yeah,
but like, when it comes to anything else that matters, like, in the world, we still hold them in high regard,
Right.
too high regard that they like. Okay, great, you are a master at being, an athlete. I could never make it to the NFL. You're a master at that. Yes. Why do I care what you think about any other aspect of life? Like, why should I care what you think about the environment or politics or whatever? I shouldn't.
I think
Nobody should give a shit what you think about that. You're a master of your craft. You're not an expert on fucking everything.
so. I'll give you this, and this is not to argue your point by any means. I think maybe what it is, to kind of bring it back around to wrestling, it's the same thing of, well, we see these people as masters of their craft in the ring and stuff, but you want to peel back the curtain and you want to have an emotional connection. Like, we as humans just want emotional connection to other humans. We want to be able to find something relatable to these wrestlers, these athletes, these musicians or whatever, that we can relate to on a human to human level. So yes, you can respect them for their masters of the craft, but if they happen to agree with your stance on this issue, that issue, this other worldview, whatever, now you've just made another connection. So we as humans generally, as just a species, strive for some sort of connection, interaction, sense of belonging, sense of community, and maybe that's why people will, gravitate towards these other things, these other aspects of why they hold these other individuals in such high regard. Just the same thing, like I said, just in wrestling, like, how many times have I said, like, man, give me something to care about. Like, you got to give me something relatable. So, like, when you peel back that curtain a little bit, and I see something other than just what character you're portraying in the ring, and I can relate to you on a personal level, like, that's gonna make me, like you as a human or whatever all the more. Like, that's gonna get me more connected to you, and that's gonna make me, enjoy whatever you're doing all the more or whatever, because now I have something other than just this surface level thing. Now I have a deeper, quote unquote, deeper connection. So maybe that's why. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or indifferent, but
I
You
understand that.
know what I mean?
I understand that, but like, I don't know.
No, I'm with you.
Especially with wrestling, like, now anymore, like, I feel what you're saying, like, I do, about like that emotional connection. But now I listen to these interviews with Stone Cold about like, I'm not a CTE guy, I don't believe in that. And they're like, oh, I felt like I had that connection, like any blue collar person could have that connection with Steve Austin. He got to beat up his boss and give his boss middle fingers. Like, we've all wanted to do that at one point. Like, he got to do it, and you live vicariously through him. And now you hear this interview, and you're like, oh,
what a fucking tool bag.
Damn it. Like, and then, like, and again, like with Brett and Hogan, like, they buy into so much of their own bullshit, and you're like, oh man, like, I saw you as like one of the greatest, technical wrestlers. Hogan was one of the greatest performers, and like, oh, now you listen to them, and you're like, fuck, man, if I could have just gone back and rewound the clock.
Well,
and just seen you for what I saw you as when I was younger. Like, I want that back.
I know.
Like, I want to get back, what I saw in Steve Austin before, what I saw in The Undertaker. Like, I want that back. The more I'm learning about them now, it's like, man, I want to learn less. I want to go back to kayfabe. Can we go back to kayfabe? I want to believe in it again.
You know what they say, man. Ignorance is bliss. And but unfortunately, the fact that we are learning these things, as sad as it may be, like, to get back some of that innocence, to get back some of that, blissful unawareness of the reality of the world and these people as they are today. The only thing I can say is, man, it shows growth on us as wrestling fans. It shows growth on us as people, understanding that, man, I love that character of Stone Cold. I love that that, you know, that anti-hero. I love the fact that he could do what he wants, said what he wanted, got to, you know, flip off his boss, give him the stunner, this and that. He did things his way, and he was rough, tough, blue collar, yada yada yada. But at the end of the day, you know, I also am somebody that seeks out knowledge, and when I see scientific information in front of me that says chair shots equals CTE, and I've got this person saying, oh, I'm not really a CTE guy. All right, well, you know what? Sucks, you know. I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I have a.
You spoke about it like it was a sporting, like it was talking. It's like, yeah, I'm not really an E guy.
Yeah. It's
like,
just,
or I'm not really a fan of chocolate.
Yeah,
I'm not really a
Like-
Philadelphia Eagle guy. Like, but no, that's not how that works, though. Like,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, no, it just shows
Come on.
it shows growth on us as humans, and, you know, learn and just wanting to, again, learn and do better about everything, you know, about all aspects of life. And in this case, like, you know, we could sit here, if we were lesser people, we could sit here and go, well, it should be the old way. They should fucking take chair shots to the head. They should fucking gig themselves and blah, 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 blah. Like, no. I want to see these people, you know, be able to have good careers. Like, I want to see these people be able to get the most they can out of this business that they've put so much of their time and sacrificed into. Like, a perfect example, I finally, years and years after the fact, I finally got around to watching, I don't know if there were more seasons or not, but all 3 seasons of Ms. and Mrs. Dude, I have so much more respect for fucking Mike Miseria now. Like, the fact that, again, I can relate because he's a small town guy. Like, he came from, you know, a small town just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, you know, kind of neighboring thing here. Like, he's a small town guy that, you know, had a dream about this stuff or whatever, and he chased it and he did it, and, you know, he's got a very, you know, blessed life or whatever. So, like, I'm happy for him, and I'm happy to see the work that he's doing, and I'm glad that he's been able to be around as long as he can, because he's a good worker to have. He's, you know, he doesn't work he doesn't have to do a bunch of fucking thousand flip rotation flippy doos to fucking, you know, win me over. Like, he does good character work, and, you know, he's somebody that was good to have around. I want to see people to be able to have long careers like that. You know, I want people to be able to do the best for themselves, in general, in this business that I enjoy watching their craft. I don't want to see people, you know, concussed and their brains turned to mush, and, you know, have them, you know, being like fucking, you know, slobbering all over themselves or anything like that, because I was so selfish in wanting to see that gratuitous violence of an unprotected chair shot. Fuck that, you know. I don't know.
I don't know about you boys. We're coming up on the 3-hour mark.
We are. We're just over 2.5 there. It's,
Well, that's the Pittsburgh Pile Driver Podcast guarantee. You may not get us every week, but when you get us, it's going to be quality content. We may not be here every week, but we're here. When we are here, it matters.
Beef, do we have something chumps in the hopper?
Do we? Give me a second. I dropped my phone today, by the way. And I've dropped my phone like hundreds of times, right? Never had an issue. It was super innocuous. I sat down. I went to my desk. I sat down, and my phone fell on my carpeted floor. I picked it up. I put it face down, not thinking anything of it. For like 10 minutes while I was logging into work and everything, flipped it over to put the charger on it, and the fucking like bottom right where my fucking thumb goes for my home screen button, shattered in like a circular pattern, and spiderwebbed out for like I don't know,
Oh,
like an eighth of the phone. It's not super bad, but it's really fucking annoying that it's right there.
Yep.
And I don't know if it caught the wheel of my chair or what the fuck, but like that happened, and I'm like, oh great, so this is just how this day is gonna be. Fucking neat. I just was doing that. So, yeah, we have quite a few Stump the Chumps in here.
Ooh.
We have a couple from Pet, Ryuk. Yeah, we have one from Ryuk from like July, so I think that's been sitting in the hopper long enough. You wanna
Yeah.
do it?
Yeah, let's see what that one is.
This ought to
All
be
right,
interesting.
who was the last WWF champion and the first WWE champion?
That shouldn't be too hard to run back.
The last.
When did that
WW
change over?
After the invasion?
wasn't the
over
last
after invasion.
the last WWF, wasn't it Kane?
Might have been. Let me think. So
That sounds
WWE.
silly. That sounds silly, Poot. I'm gonna put the I'm gonna kibosh that because during that era, Kane was champion for like a day.
It was well, and it was just it popped into my head, and whenever something pops into my head like that, I got to get it out because
Yeah,
there and
normally I
fester.
lean into the Poots like here's a weird thing, but
Well,
like
no.
Kane was champion for a day, and I don't think that would have been like this day.
Well, no, and I'm not saying definitively that was the answer. I'm just saying it popped into my brain. That's all I'm
yes.
saying.
To these to their points, it was after the invasion. So it would have been between 2001 and 2002, I want to say.
That sounds probably right. So I think invasion happened in 2001.
It did. It
Yeah,
did
it
because
started in-
all those WCW heads showed up in the boxes at WrestleMania 17. So Austin won the belt at 17. No. Yes, Austin won the belt at 17. That's when he returned heel to work with Vince McMahon. And what was the title match of fucking WrestleMania 18?
18?
Is that Angle Lesnar?
No, it was fucking Jericho Triple H. Right?
Oh, yeah, it was. Yeah.
So run that lineage. Austin held the belt through the invasion, right?
He did because Rock was WCW champion.
Uh-huh.
After invasion, they did the
unified. The answer's not
combination.
Chris Jericho, right?
No, because I think it was still the WWF championship when
What?
they went from carrying around 2 belts to 1 belt. And I think that WWF championship eventually became the WWE Undisputed Championship, like the same belt design that they had after the 2 belts were combined into 1.
Okay.
Like
So
the belt design that we like a lot.
So then this would have been after WrestleMania 18 then, because they were still using 2 belts then. So here's the progression of that.
Can I throw out another bonkers thing before you get into the waters? This was what, 2000, like early 2000s, right?
Was it fucking Hulk Hogan?
I was just about to say, was Hogan fucking running around?
It may have been Hulk Hogan. It may have been because Triple H beat Jericho.
Yeah.
Hogan, I think
Hogan beat Triple H for that title.
And then Taker beat Hogan for that title.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say.
So
I remember from the documentary too that Hogan beat Triple H. That was something that came up.
And then I think Angle beat No,
Who beat
Lesnar
Hogan?
would have beaten
Undertaker beat Hogan.
Taker. Lesnar somehow got there because Angle, or no, Lesnar beat Angle for it at fucking WrestleMania. So then it would have been Angle beating, I think, The Rock. I think The Rock beat Undertaker, and then Angle beat Rock, and then Brock beat Angle. That's basically the WWF WWE lineage between 18 and 19. If I'm not missing any steps, it may have been Hulk Hogan.
I think. Okay, so timeline wise, I think Hogan had the belt during the transition.
Into the
From-
summer, right?
Well, yeah, like I think Hogan was the WWF champion and then was still the WWF champion when they changed to WWE. And
Yeah.
then after that, Taker, like you said, beat Hogan. So I'm not sure how Ryuk is framing this, but Hogan was the last WWF champion.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, would have been the
He-
first.
He,
WWE
I
champion.
guess, technically was the first WWE because he had the belt during the transition. But
Right.
to put that asterisk there, the person who beat Hogan was Taker. So
The
if
first
Ryuk is
person
looking
to
for
win.
like
The first
yeah.
person to win the WWE title was Undertaker.
was Undertaker,
The last, right? But the
Yeah.
first
the last
WWE
the last to
champion,
have it,
technically.
yeah, the last to have it was Hogan. The first to technically have it because of the transition was Hogan. But like you said, the first to win it as the WWE championship was Taker.
And I think that absolutely probably played right into what they planned because again, having Hulk Hogan being involved in such a lineage, like having
Yeah.
him being like the first WWE champion, matches up. So I'm solid on that. If you guys are.
I'm
It
pretty
sounds
solid
right.
on that.
With the exact way that Ransom phrased it, like the correct answer is Hulk Hogan, but if Ryuk is looking for two different people, Hulk Hogan was the first. Undertaker was technically the first person to win the WWE title.
There we go.
Yeah. No,
Cool?
I'm
Cool.
I'm
Let's
I'm
go.
I'm all good with that.
Sorry.
Ryuk said he's glad to hear that everything's doing well. We were doing well 2 months ago. We still are, and
Damn it.
thanks for everything we do. Thanks, buddy.
What a nice dude.
Yeah, dude. He's always so awesome.
He's such a
Big-
positive guy, man.
Yeah, dude. Big ups to Ryuk because he will always come into my streams, and even though they may be like 5 months apart, here comes Ryuk to sit and like just watch me play dinosaurs for fucking 3 hours. Big ups to Ryuk, man.
Yeah, man, he's a good dude. He really is.
The answer is Hulk Hogan. He saw exactly what we saw. It is in
Okay.
fact the Huckster, Terry Bollea. Ryuk, we just gave you some real big ups and a nice little shout out there, only to tear you down, brother, because you brought your best. And once again, the champs are here. You lose, sir. And much like the Shannon household,
Oh,
you get nothing.
all right. Give me one from Pat. We'll end it on one from Pat. We
I
have a lot in the hopper.
be happier to do nothing less than that. Before the WCW had the Cruiserweight title, they had the WCW Light Heavyweight title, which
Mm.
had only one two-time champion.
Shit.
Who
Didn't we
was
do
that
this
two-time
already?
champion? No, I think we did Cruiserweight Tag Team Champion. I think we did like the Women's Tag Team Champion in WCW. I think there was like a United States the United States Tag Team Champions in WCW. But I don't recall this one.
They had some goofy one-off titles.
They sure fucking did.
WCW has had more titles than any other promotion ever.
Yeah, man. Can you imagine going to Ted Turner and being like, "Hey, Ted, we need to get a new belt. Go ahead, partner. Have all the belts. Make a
Go
new belt.
ahead,
I don't
partner."
care. I bleed gold. Let's go."
Damn it.
This is a great question.
Go ahead.
I'm real upset. Because I can't think of the lineage before the Cruiserweight title. Because I'm that guy. I'll be 100% that guy. I jumped onto the cruiserweight title when it was cool. Whenever I was watching, I was like, "Hey, these guys are fucking cooking. Let's go." I don't know shit about shit before that. I don't know.
Oh,
Dean
gross.
Malenko?
I was gonna say Brian
I
Pillman.
think
No, this.
fuck, Tom.
Why are you saying Pillman?
That's actually not a bad idea because Pillman predated all those like cruiserweight dudes.
He
think
was on the very
this-
first Nitro.
This would have been like real early on though, because I think the cruiserweight title, like, that was around
It's been
during
around.
like
Yeah.
the NWO
Mhm.
Outsiders.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my yes.
Well, yeah.
So it
that-
would have had to have been like real early '90s during the early inception of WCW.
yeah.
What about Ricky the Dragon Steamboat too? He's a guy that I can see them
No.
doing that with.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't like a light heavyweight kind of guy. He was always sniffing around the. He was always around like
in the United States,
upper.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say upper to like upper mid card or whatever. Yeah, he was.
Right, yeah. That's fair,
Because
that's fair.
honestly, I remember seeing. Actually, like one of my first memories of watching WCW was seeing Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, but he was he was always wrestling
Austin had some classics.
yeah, oh yeah, no, but he was always wrestling the upper to mid card sort of thing. So he
Yeah,
wasn't.
but like if this was a belt that they were trying to establish, I would have thought that they would have put it on somebody important.
So
Pillman's not a bad
this-
answer. I don't hate it.
This would have been let's say it was Pillman. This would have been after Hollywood Blondes.
I'd agreed. Yep.
So this would have been when they split them up, and Austin was by himself, and Pillman was by himself. So it's not a far shot to believe that Pillman would have been in a singles
but when were
title picture.
when were the Hollywood Blondes?
Well,
though? That's my only question.
Well, the Hollywood the
Or was it after?
Like-
Fuck, I don't know.
no, it would have been because didn't they separated the two of them, didn't they? Or
They
was it they were the Hollywood Blondes were this
They were
was
the
this
tag
would
team
have been before
Steve Austin became,
no. I'm aware. I'm aware of that, but like I'm just saying Pillman I think was running solo before that, correct?
I think so.
Well, they both would have been, yeah. Oh, so this could have been pre-Hollywood
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it
Blogans.
was.
Blugans.
See, but like I feel like
Yeah, because they were
The
both
light-
singles.
But like here's the thing. I feel like the light heavyweight title does not have that long of a lineage.
No, it doesn't.
Probably
No.
like 3 or 4 people. And like I know the cruiserweight title came around pretty early on in the 90s, like maybe 95-ish.
So here's
Maybe 96. I don't know exactly the year, but like
my thing.
No, I think. Yeah, Tom. I think Tom is right that this was pre-Hollywood Blondes.
Yeah, I was
Because
gonna
after
say,
they broke them up, didn't Pillman and Austin feud for like the U.S. title
I think so.
or the TV title or something like that? It wasn't. Yeah,
Yeah, and
those two
and
feuded
makes
for a
sense.
title. I think
And-
after the breakup.
and the Hollywood Blondes, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly, the Hollywood Blondes would have been after this short inception of this light heavyweight title, and they had the cruiserweight title, and Hollywood Blondes were, doing their tag team thing or whatever. So you already, like, we were done with the light heavyweight title at that point. You had a cruiserweight title.
Yeah.
We were done with light heavyweight. So light heavyweight would have had to been like, it's like super early 90s or whatever. You know what I mean?
91, 92 era.
Something like that. Like if I'm getting my timelines right.
Yep,
But
yep,
but
I would agree.
but I do remember there being, God, I don't remember what it was that I was just watching recently, but I swear, like, I remember hearing something about, like, again, talking about, like, some of the early days. Maybe I was watching a Dark Side of the Ring about Pillman or something. That might have been it.
They did have that. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be real. Like I can't think of many others who would have fit that bill. Like that style of wrestling, but pre-cruiserweight.
Yeah.
Like his name was Flying Brian.
Yeah.
So like
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I
It was,
feel
yeah.
like that might be the answer. I don't know. Because I just I'm not.
I mean, if
I
anybody,
don't know enough about like modern era WCW to know about to like
Well,
say
I don't think
definitively.
there were many cruiserweights at that time.
no.
At
There
least
weren't.
not in
Like-
WCW.
Like the luchador influx had not happened because ECW had not brought them in yet. So
Right.
like WCW had not ripped them off yet.
I don't know.
You
That
would have had like they had a working relationship with Japan too, though. Like, I mean, they did have some
Yeah.
like masked high flyers
Yeah,
running
'cause,
around. Like they weren't,
oh, who the fuck was it?
Would have been that Thunder Liger guy.
Yeah.
Liger,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my
Liger
god.
might be a good one too.
I think
I don't
I mean,
think
he
they would
might-
have
he
done
might have been-
Liger.
I think
He might have been a champion,
I think he was.
but I don't know if he was a two-timer.
Yeah, I think he was in there, but I want to say, God, the more we're talking about it, the more.
What about Johnny B. Bad? I'll throw Johnny B.
No.
Bad in there as well because he had a
No.
similar style.
No.
Okay.
He wasn't ever a lightweight.
No.
Okay.
Well, he was a bigger guy, I thought.
He was.
At
So
least height-wise.
so the more we're talking about it, I want to say Pillman might have been the first, and then he was and then he was a two-time. I don't remember. I don't remember anybody else in there, and I don't remember where it ended or why it ended or something like that. Like I don't remember that, but for some reason Pillman just seems like
I mean,
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
I don't.
again-
I
like Beef
like
said,
the
his name
city.
was Flying Brian.
again.
Yeah, we can't-
You know what? Man, I was watching Dark Side of the Ring the other night, and I fell asleep watching it, and that may have been why Pillman's name came into my mind because that was the episode I was watching. So
The subconscious caught it. Okay. I can't offer a better name than that. Liger would make sense too, but again, he was a non-company guy, so like it wouldn't make sense for him to have it twice.
yeah.
Pillman being a WCW guy absolutely would make sense. So I'm fine with saying Brian Pillman if you guys are.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I mean, like you said, there are too many arrows pointing towards him and not enough pointing away from him.
Oh, I don't want Pat to be right on this because I'd hate to give him any kind of a do here. Man, we'll see. This felt like a softball to me because we're in some WCW guru, but the only two-time champion was Flying Brian Pillman.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Good job, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was on Tom and his
Fucking Sudafed induced coma, fucking subconscious.
Yeah, man.
Tom was right out there too. Tom was like, Beef asked the question. Tom's like, Brian Pillman.
Yeah, man. There was not much hemming and hawing. He was like, I think it's Brian Pillman. And we're all like, well, let's think of other people. And he's like, nope, it's Brian Pillman.
No. I
so-
wasn't quite that confident. I the more we talked about it, the more it was like I was convincing myself too. I'm like, I think this makes sense. And now it's kind of all coming together. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's why I thought it. And
It's all coming up, Pillman.
it's all
well-
coming up Millhouse.
I'll give you some flowers, Pat. That was not the softball that you thought it was.
No, not at all.
And the expert was not who you thought it was, but the result remains the same. Once again, the Shannon household comes up short. Boy, that must suck, huh?
Oh,
Huh?
jeez.
Put up the ones, boys, because once again, the Pittsburgh Piledriver Podcast, led by the Tribal Beef, is successful. Pat, Midcard Maniac, whatever you want to call yourself a loser because you
Oh.
lose, sir,
Gosh.
and you get
Jeez.
nothing. I can't. You ransom. You're popping, man. I can't get through it. You, I can't. It's gone.
Jeez.
The moment's
Call
gone.
yourself a loser. Jeez. Oh my God.
Call
Did you
yourself.
catch
Call
I
yourself.
said, call yourself a loser because you lose, sir? You hear that? It's all coming together, man.
Call
Lord.
yourself Shannon's doppelganger. Or Amber's doppelganger. God, I see.
Man,
Okay,
I'm-
the fucking the fucking NyQuil's kicking in. I'm ready to go.
This Sudafed has
Woo.
him.
He's,
We gotta get out of here, baby.
Lord, that
Yeah.
took my breath away.
Fruit.
Did you call him,
say that.
wait,
Hold
did
on,
you call him
let me-
Prout?
Let me do it again. Let me do it again because it felt so good. Poot. Ah, I heard my voice in that one. Tell him
Oh, God,
something stupid.
Whenever things come together and we all are part of a wrestling family, we can determine that Bret Hart puts himself over and Vince McMahon is the equivalent of that lump of dust and fur you find underneath your couch, but it's on fire and sticky, and you're not sure why,
Oh,
but it is. So thanks to our sponsors and all of us, listen to more of this. One up the ones up for beef are now and forever. I believe in Beef Henry. Have a good night.
One's up for the
Watch out.
legend, baby.